So I think we start. Hello everyone. Hello to everyone also online. As you know, we stream also always to our Digital Fashion Week in the Metaverse. I welcome you all to our 7th Universe edition. Just a little bit about the history. We started actually this event during 2014, right, Volker? We started this event about technology, innovation, digitization in fashion 2014, very small, with 3 people, little community, and we are now 2025 and here with YOONAVERSE. Today I want to have a special thanks to Ahoy Berlin, who is our partner and kind of sponsoring this event. Nevena will also come here from Ahoy and will say some words. And to have a little bit look to our agenda, today we really focus on AI, if it's our specialty. We talk about how AI works, how you should use it, and also how you should change your mindset if you're working with AI. We prepared also a little workshop we go through later on, and we have also a panel discussion about technology and innovation, and at the end we have also a special guest who's doing a keynote about how you commercialize with AI. I would ask Nevena to the stage and give her the word.
Welcome to Ahoy. I'm very happy to see you all here today, and I'm actually very happy about the partnership we recently started. And this year has started great for us. We are co-working space. We're one of the oldest co-working spaces in Berlin, existing already for I think 12 years, and very proud to be in this building. You are in one old milk factory of Berlin at the moment, which our interior designer has created in the co-working space. What is very important for us is exactly events like that, partners like that, people who change, people who drive innovation, and who combine technology with certain aspects of life and change. This is also the specifics about us. We not only sell offices and we not only organize events, but we also work a lot of content. And I don't want to waste your time. If you have questions about our co-working space, anything you would like to know, any other project, we don't we work with fashion, we work with sustainability, finances, have quite many projects running. So if you're interested in anything, feel free to ping me. If I'm not here, I'm going downstairs on the second floor. And I hope you enjoy. And thanks again for being here.
So I can really recommend it. My daughter was doing her internship here, and then we just loved it so much and stayed here to do this event and working here. So I would like to come to stage as Steven. Steven is our technical co-founder, our CTO, and he is AI specialist in innovation, and he will have an amazing talk. I love this talk, how he explains his mom how to work with AI.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone. This is a talk that I gave at Google, and it was aimed at technical people, product developers. And the idea was to kind of pass on my tips for technical development to make it simple. So before we start, is there anyone in the audience? Can we get a show of hands? And I know we don't like interactivity this early in the morning, but can we get a show of hands? Who considers themselves technical? Okay, and the rest of us don't. I expect. Okay, so it'll be interesting today. We can do it as a conversation. Let's start. Okay, let's not start. There we go. Okay. Okay. Anyway, that stage, but 15 years experience in leading teams, building products and driving innovation, as Anna said. At YOONA, I'm leading the tech team, and our goal is to help fashion brands make smarter decisions and make them faster. We bring them closer to the market, and we use things like machine learning and generative AI in a way that's easy and accessible. And this talk is about essentially how some of the things we're doing to achieve that. So the talk at Google was bringing cutting-edge tech to non-tech audiences. But I think maybe today we can say it's translating tech to Canva and vice versa. So basically, the way to do it, my philosophy, is through two key pillars, which is education and simplicity. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Enough bad jokes. The first part is education. So you might be wondering why we're not educators. Why education? What does that mean? And I'm going to start with a little story. What you're looking at here is a room in my parents' house in Ireland. This is called the utility room. And I don't know if any of you are from the UK or know houses in the UK, Ireland. The utility room is a little room that sits between the garden, or the garage, and the kitchen. And it's where you kind of bring dirty things in from the garage or bring vegetables in from the garden. You can wash them off. There's quite often washing machines, there's mops for the floor. It's a utility room. You can see here there's a fridge, and if you note, my daughter's getting here, which will come back later. But there's also this thing. This is a microwave. And you might wonder, why is the microwave in the utility room and not in the kitchen where all the other cooking utensils live? Basically, my mum has a degree in English. She's not a science graduate. But she's heard of the terms radiation. She's heard of electromagnetic radiation. She's heard of microwave radiation. She's heard of radioactivity. And all of these things in her head are bundled up together. And my mum is convinced that the microwave is radioactive. Now, I sat down with my mum. I took her my A-level physics book, and I explained that the little holes when you look through the grill in the microwave, they're the right size to block the wavelength of the microwave radiation. And even if they weren't, it's not ionizing radiation. It's not beta, alpha, gamma radiation. My mum looked at me blankly because I wasn't using language that she understood. She didn't have the time or the energy to invest in learning that language. So I didn't get my message across. I failed. And 25 years later, the microwave is still in the utility room, safely not irradiating my mum's tomatoes. And I learned a lesson. I learned a lesson that I have to communicate. There's the microwave. So the problem is that when my mum didn't understand what I was saying, when I was using words that she didn't understand, I was explaining a technology that she didn't grasp. It can, as Arthur C. Clarke says, it can come across as magic. And when you're in a position where you're creating technology, you're selling technology, the last thing you want to be seen as is a magician, a con man, a used car salesman. You're selling smoke and mirrors to your clients. You want to build a relationship. You want to be able to communicate on their level and use language that they understand. So in the context of YOONA, obviously, like we're all in Berlin, there's probably 10 languages in this room already. In YOONA, there's many languages as well. But we communicate in English. But even given that that's English, there are many different interpretations. So when I talk to the tech team about a model, what I'm talking about is code. We get data, we train the data, we create a model, the model does something. But when we talk to fashion designers, this is what they think about models. Maybe not those two. I thought it was clever. I thought I knew what patterns are. When you look at a dress, you see the patterns, you see the colours. I thought this one was quite obvious. But when we talk to fashion designers, this is a pattern. So we're using the same language, we're talking about two completely different things. When I think about AI, I think about things like neural networks. This is your stereotypical diagram of a deep neural network. When we talk to clients about AI, this is what they see. They think it's a scary robot that's going to come and steal my job. So we have to learn how to communicate, how to get that message across, so that we can connect with them. This is another brilliant quote from George Bernard Shaw. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it happened. And quite often, as you see, we're talking in English. I've given many talks in my life. I've gotten all the words across I wanted, and the client comes away with a completely different image of scary robots and Ben Stiller and etc. So the thing is, the truth about AI, and what we try to tell to our clients, is that AI can help you save time and effort. It can improve your accuracy and your precision. It provides better insights and decisions on your data and your business process. It can learn and adapt over time, so as your business and your situation changes, it changes with you. And it can enhance convenience and overall user experience. But if I can't communicate that to my client, then they don't understand it. So in Yuna, our message to the designers we work with is that our system helps you get closer to the market. It helps you create multiple designs in seconds. You can produce best-selling designs because we're bringing the data in from the web right into your design. Click, 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 you create new bestsellers. You reduce waste in production and you reduce waste in non-sold inventory. And until I connect with the client, I can't get that message across because all they see is the scary robot that's coming to steal my clothes. So I mentioned there's two parts to the talk. The first part was education. The second part is a process of reductionist conceptualization aimed at minimizing systemic complexities and streamlining multifaceted constructs into comprehensible and operationally efficient frameworks, otherwise known as simplification. So what do I mean by simplification? For me, as a tech person, data and data analysis is spreadsheets, charts, databases, and you come up with graphs and scatter plots and diagrams, and you analyze these and you come to conclusions. That's not acceptable for a lot of people. That's not what they want to do, it's not what they want to see, and it's not how they interpret their work. So at Yuna, rather than producing diagrams and scatter plots for designers who are frankly overworked and busy and don't want to dig into spreadsheets, we thought we had to come up with a new way of doing this. We had to simplify it. So what we did is we created what we call the product hub. Now the product hub, as you can see, is very visual. What we do, we have brand data, competitor data, and trend data. So that's your own data, it's your competitor's data, and data that's coming in from trends. We measure it all, we display it all visually, so you can actually see what you're saying. It's not a data point, it's an actual product image. And then we have various filters that you can filter through. Is it a product for children, is it for ladies, is it for men, what size, what color. And you're essentially doing data analysis in a way that's very simple, very intuitive. And then as soon as you want to drop that into the creative funnel, as soon as you want to say, okay, these two are two bestsellers, what can I do with that? You simply click. And by clicking on the images, you get a series of tools. And these tools are where you begin your designer's journey. So you've done your analysis, you looked, I like these two, I want to combine them. You click, and then you bring it into the product design. Now again, product design is, like when you talk to fashion designers, product design is usually drawing and then digitizing that, or maybe even digitizing, and then there's a whole series of steps. You go back, you change, you iterate. One of the problems with AI is that you tell it to do a prompt, it comes out, story's over.
Short question.
Yeah.
All the, in this case, shoes there, are there real shoes, pictures of real shoes?
Yeah.
I mean, like for trends, probably you don't have already a model that you can put as a picture in your system.
Yeah, we do, yeah. So the thing is, these are products, this is the example platform, we don't show any client data, obviously. But here we have brand data, which is all your brand DNA.
That's easier.
Yeah. The competitor data is data that we scrape, open data that comes from any competitor you tell us to scrape. And trends comes from things like WGSN, anything on Instagram, any particular designer's blog, fashion websites, and we bring it in. The problem with trends is that, I think this is what you're hinting at, it's not necessarily a product shot. It can also be colors, it can also be themes, which...
That's why I was wondering, because here I see shoes and trends, probably you won't see a whole shoe. You see a trending color, you see a trending...
Sometimes though, sometimes you get trending colors, but then you get a trending look, and then you can blend that into your design. So if you have a dress, and you have someone in a trending look, which is like animal print.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And then you can blend it in. And this is what I'm getting at the microphone, which is here where it's iterative. So it's not just one AI, it's a series of design assistants. So this is why we're simplifying the technology. And I'm saying here we're hiding the scary bits. So we have a series of design assistants. And I mentioned later that my daughter would come back. We decided to call them after our children. so that it was a bit more personal, because we wanted names for each one of them. So Luna and Eloy are Anna's kids. Bruno's Focus kid, and Maya's my daughter. And what these design assistants do is that they're there to help you on your journey. They're there to help you iterate and change and work your way through the creative funk. So in this case, we have, you click 2 images, you set a couple of variables, how much influence you have on one or the other, and you set the design assistant working. One of my principles is to make things simple but don't limit people. So we have, in every product, we have a series of extra options where you can fine tune, you can tweak, but only once you get into it, only once you get an understanding, so it's not too scary at first and there's less of a learning curve. We have taken things like prompting out of the platform. So why would we do this? One, there is a learning curve with prompting. Now there are things like prompt engineers. I think it's crazy that. Prompt engineers, and it comes with this idea that there are good and there are bad ways to describe this, and if I don't describe it good, what's going to happen and can I do it? So what we've done is we've on the one hand, none of our models need prompting. They need a tiny bit of direction to let you know what they're developing, but to a large extent the prompt is taken out, and where we need a prompt, we've said, describe your design. Because if I ask you to create a prompt, you're going to think, what I have to do, but if I ask you to describe your design, any fashion designer can describe their design in great detail. And that's what it needs. Again, make it simple, make it familiar. So the designer's journey is an iterative journey. They don't design a pair of shoes and finish and say that's it, I'm done. What they want to do is keep going, keep working, keep iterating on this product. So in every tool, you get access to the product where you can select any data, you can mash it up, and you can keep working with it. You also get underneath every image, you get a toolbar. And the toolbar lets you, under any image, it gives you access to different features. So as soon as you get a pair of shoes, you say, I like the color in that. You take the color, you can then use that color in a different idea. Oh, I like that, but I'd like to modify it. I like that, but I like variations. And you keep this iterative way of working. So in this case, what we're doing is we're taking a very complex technology and we're making it simple and iterative to keep using. So we're not really changing your job, we're just changing the way you approach it. So that's basically a very quick overview, but the point of this talk was to get across the idea that in order to understand your client, and it's the same, and this can also work, I'll give you a very quick anecdote before I finish. I was working in online marketing company many years ago. My background is tech, but in this case I was working in the marketing department. And I approached one of the tech guys, and I said, hi, I'm Stephen from the performance marketing department. And I saw the guy's face glaze over. And I thought, he's going to come over and he's going to go, what do you want? Do you want this thingy that does the click to go to the other thingy? And I was able to sit down and talk to him, and I said, you're using this technology, can we connect to that and make a solution? And the guy's face changed, and the guy got excited, and the guy thought, oh, that's a good idea. Well, yeah, maybe I can do that, give me some time. So I went back and sat down, and half an hour later he came over and he said, have you looked up these 2 or 3 ways we can do it? And that was simply because I communicated with him. I didn't come over from the marketing department and ask him for magic. And so if you're speaking to your clients or you're speaking to your tech team, try and connect on their level, and it makes it so much easier. Then you can also explain what you're trying to do or what you're trying to sell, and you can make that connection. And finally, if you're designing products, then design them with as low a learning curve as possible. So things like, we'll not get into the methodology, but in most software you have like file and edit, and the 2 first buttons. And in file, you can open a document, you can create a new document, you can save documents. So you have these things that you can latch onto that make the learning curve less steep. So this is what you're trying to do. Make it simple, make it acceptable, and make it intuitive. Yeah, now thank you, and any questions? That's really yeah.
So, go a bit more technical, just basically. So, actually, what your software as a service, I think it's on web, right? Is doing actually, is it generating a front and then actually giving the front end already this existing diffusion models, or how does it work at the end?
We use a different, there's not one model, there's a whole series of models. So it depends on what you're doing. Our strength is basically in combining images. So it is using diffusion models, either proprietary, third party, and It's essentially image combination, not prompting.
But you have your own diffusion model there, or your own generative AI, or is it just you're using another or already existing? Because training a model is not going too deep here, but
I mean, this is what we're interested in doing. This is the next round, and this is why we're raising, is to train our own thing. But at the minute, we're using a series of different tools. So the platform is built modular, so that everything, there are layers of abstraction, and you can plug into different APIs, and we have various different technologies doing different things. Some of it is our own, some of it is repurposed from academia, and some of it is third party. But it's not prompting, and the reason behind not prompting is that when you train a model, I'll simplify this, when you train a model, you basically give the model a whole series of images, hundreds of thousands if not millions, and you tie those images to words, so that when someone says create a dog in a park with a frisbee, the model can connect those dots and then bring back something from the images it has learned. If you're just looking for a dog in a park with a frisbee, that's fine. If you're a fashion designer and you're looking for something unique, something based on your brand DNA, you're going to get a replica of whatever that model was trained on. So what we're doing is presenting models where you have I mean, the training set can be huge, but still, it's not unique. What we're doing is you take your brand DNA, you take your competitor's model, you mash them up, and then in a second you get, oh, okay, that looks cool, but then what would happen if I did this? What would happen if I added blue? And this is the iterative cycle we're going with. Does that answer your question? You don't think
not totally. But the point is, I don't want to go too deep here, so I think it's not general interest.
Maybe we can have a conversation.
That's okay.
I saw a question over here.
I'm curious to know how your models incorporate demographic information, and is it like looking at trend analysis at large broadly, or is it sort of because each brand designer, apart from having their own brand DNA, caters to a specific market demographic that's beyond like really traditional, age and income and this kind of thing? Like you need to be, I feel like it'd be difficult to train an AI model to appeal specifically to the kinds of like value systems of those demographics. How does the AI model know how to do that?
Yeah, that's why we don't do that. That question? No, this is what I was explaining about the design assistant. So the whole concept of the product came with a conversation between Anna and we were discussing how to analyze, I'm not just pointing at the wall. And it came on how to analyze jumpers. I am clearly not from the fashion world, so I see a jumper with a sleeve and a button, but fashion designers see it completely differently. And in order, like you say, in order to train all of that into the model, it takes a huge amount of work. So what we decided was the best way is to rely on the fashion designer's intelligence, on their skill and their knowledge. We present them the data, then they choose which elements they want to blend to create a new combination. Because at the same time, AI, I always say AI is a tool. AI won't replace you. There's a saying, AI won't replace you, people using AI will replace you. So AI is a tool that you can use to get faster and quicker to your destination. If I train an AI to do everything that a fashion designer, how many fashion designers are there? How many models will I have to train? So we give the AI, we give the fashion designer tools to combine whatever they want, and at the same time, you're talking about trends, bring in whatever trend they want, and drop it into the blending pot, and then come up with new designs. That way, we don't need to train the model every time. We don't need to keep training and updating and working with it. We just have this tool that allows you to mash up whatever you want, get the output really quickly. If you're not happy, do it again, rinse and repeat.
I can jump also in. I mean, I was working as a designer so long, and working with a tech person is very hard. Because they would build a really, you would have been building a really different product, right? We started with very tech wording, it was only analysis, graphs, like totally different, right? So we have been sitting together, and I said, I don't understand what you're doing. So I would not use it as a designer. I don't get anything, and that's why we came up with all the different, also innovation in the innovation. So not training a model, what can we do? How creative can we be? And what are the possibilities to work that designers can work with it? And I think you would say we have been building like a Playmobil platform now, kind of. But we came up with a different approach, not only training a model. I mean, this is not, we can train a lot of models, but we have to use it also, and we have to make people understand how to use it.
Yeah, I have a workshop after, but just kind of general overview of how you can go about integrating AI into your company. And the only thing I'll say now is that AI is not always the solution. Sometimes what you need is a different solution. In this case, we didn't need AI to analyze every image and then come back. That would be nice, but it's expensive, it's long. Whereas given the designer of the point, using that massive brain that we all have, using that for free to analyze the data and then using AI to blend it up was a much better solution.
Later giving a demonstration on, let's step by step, just designing a shoe, a dress, a t-shirt, whatever it is, just to see how it works practically. Then it's easy, I think, to understand.
Yeah, later on we have planned some half-hour workshop, so me and Laura going into our platform and Stephen is going into another topic, so you can choose to go to whom you want, and then we explain a little bit more what we are doing.
How are we doing for time?
Yes.
Any more questions? Other ones? Yep.
You mentioned that you scrape the web or something for data, for comparative data. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and also isn't that like being permissioned or is it legal to do that?
There's a meme online, and I'm not sure if it's verging on sexist, but it's very funny. It says you never ask a man his salary, a woman her age, and an AI company where it gets its data.
If I understood right, it's not your own AI, you create it by data from wherever scraped from, but it's an AI that you use already, an already existing model. I don't want to know the details, but I think you're using another model.
And in some cases, yeah. And this is the area, so the data that we are using is not used to train. And any third-party model we have, I've spoken with them, we've got it in written format that they're not using data submitted to train. So the data is safe. The other thing is it's a very grey area. So it's publicly available data. It's not protected by GDPR because there's a legitimate business case, and it's not personal data. We're not taking people's names, their salaries. We're just taking images and prices, which is open in the public data on the web. So it's legal for now and for the foreseeable future. It's not illegal.
Yet in the process.
Yeah, I mean that's tech. We're on the frontiers always. So it's the same with OpenAI. They've taken all the creator data from YouTube, from everywhere. That is personalized data. So what happens? But we're not using it for training. And the other thing is, even if we use data for training, the models are not going to output the same thing. If I put in 2 shirts, they're not going to output the exact same shirt. There's going to be a variation. Any last questions? Do you have another?
I'm shy.
So can I say in the end your system, your platform is more or less an ERP system for a label? So can I do all the other stuff like ordering, optimizing, and all that stuff too, or not?
No, not at this point, because I mean, ideally that's where we would go, and you would be part of the entire process, because. Like for example, if you can go through stock ordering, if you can go through stock management, like you say in a traditional ERP system, then you can get all the feedback. We have a dashboard that we created to get this data from clients, to push them towards that. Because then what we can start doing is sustainability figures. We can start saying, this color is more sustainable than this supplier is closer than that, and we can rank products. When you design this product, you get a sustainability score of X, but if you use these suppliers, it's like half of that. So at the minute we can't do that. We're a small startup. We don't have 400 people. But that is kind of one of the goals. That is a growth area where we see it going.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Last one.
Last one, yeah.
So, I mean, how much do you really need a designer to use your tool? I mean, it seems, I don't want you to be disrespectful, but it seems like, I mean, at least everyone can play around with it. I don't know what at the end result will be. That's another question. But I'm not sure if you really need, what's the designer thing?
Okay, that's a good question for the last question. This is kind of pushing us into philosophical territory, because it's the same with journalism, it's the same with everything. And This is it's the same with programming. You know, to what point do you need a programmer when you have all of these Gen AI programming tools? You still need, they won't replace you. Like, you still need a value chain in there. You still need people to approve the product, people to, like, until this gets to the point where it can tell this material is more sustainable than this material. And there are other factors, you know, when companies have, we had a company approach us and they want a solution that uses up material that they haven't used up. So AI can't do that right now. Yes, it can design quicker, but you still need a designer to design and approve, and then once those designs come out, push them into the rest of the value chain. So we're not at the replacement part yet. Like I said before, I don't think it's going to take your jobs, it's going to make your jobs a lot easier. What you then do with that extra time, or what your company does with those extra hours, is another question. But I don't think it gets rid of designers entirely. But it does make you design quicker, it brings you closer to the market. And if you want, you can create a collection without being a designer.
So at the point is more modal, different modal approach then. So that you have the typical classical designer and you have someone using your SaaS system, and then you can compare, and then you can, like, I don't think you would only like use your system or use, it's a combination of both.
Yeah, I don't think companies work one way or the other, because the companies that we talk to, some of them actually draw on paper in 2025. They draw on paper and they put it down and they look and someone goes, that one, which is crazy to me coming from the tech world. But other companies are highly tech, and they do an Illustrator, they pump it into Close 3D and they get a 3D output. So I think there's no one solution fits all, and this is definitely a solution to help get faster and quicker. What you do with the last step, whether you simply push it into production or whether you then take that and modify it in Illustrator, that's up to you. And that's maybe where the designer's flair comes in. So we've cut out 80% of the hard work, and they add 10-20% of salt in the top. Okay, thank you very much.
As we have been talking about prompting, we show you now why we took out most of the prompting. There's a story behind it. We had a test with designers, and then they started to design, and then we had a look at the background, and we thought, what is coming out here? Because they wrote something inside, and what came out was like a house in a, I don't know, like very different. What I guess what they wanted. So Volker and me, we are talking now about what is prompting. Who knows what prompting is? Who did it already? Did you always get your result? No. I hate it too. And I think if you want to cut down time for designers, we should also really delete prompting. But anyhow, we talk a little bit about that, right, Volker? And I give it over to you, and then you keep going.
Yeah, so the main question is, as we all know, two interlocutors. What do they need? They need a clear communication.
Maybe you also present yourself who you are.
Right. Yeah. Hi, I'm Volker. I'm one of the co-founders, co-CEO of YOONA. I have my background in science and biophysics, and specialized in mathematical modeling of neural systems, neuronal systems as well. So communication, still it's something that's happening also in our brain, and that's one of the reasons why I'm also very much interested in this topic. But it doesn't start with science. It starts with two people, or several people who need and want to communicate. So we speak about clear language. That is what we need in order to understand each other. So the message between the sender and the receiver has to be clear, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's why I don't understand you.
So, because I have to find the right language, and it's simply the same with AI and prompting. There is nothing else but you wanting the algorithm, the machine, to understand you. And that is why so many people don't get the right results when they try to prompt, because they don't understand how the system is working, and in the end they fail with the results they get and are annoyed and are less willing to use that technology any longer. So we have a good example here. So the user has the imagination or the intention to build a website, say design a homepage for a mortgage app. futuristic and photorealistic. This is what the outcome could be, but the
wording is wrong.
The wording is wrong because the machine, the algorithm, doesn't have a clue about the real intentions. So what you need in order to get the AI create the right result for you is that you have to speak clearly and make sure that the engine understands where you want to go. Do you like cooking?
More or less.
More or less. This is like rather like you don't like cooking, or you don't like to take the time in order to find all the
Exactly. And if you have a look to there's some Italian dish like pasta with tomato sauce, I would just throw in pasta, tomato sauce, and a little bit of salt. Would you like that?
I'm not quite sure. Well, that's the way of communication. I just have to tell you what kind of things I like when we eat. But what do we want to say here? What do we want to show here is that, as you see, just as better ingredients can make for a better dinner, better inputs into a generative AI model can make for better results. That means, like, of course, when you want to have a quick pasta, you can take any sauce from the supermarket, combine it with pasta, and you'll have a proper food, depending on what you need in this very moment, if it's only about hunger or if it's about like haute cuisine. And of course, oh, excuse me, what's happening here?
No, I'm moving it.
Let me use
No, back. Here, okay.
Okay. And of course, you could also go to the farmer and buy all those fresh vegetables, all those fresh stuff, and you'll definitely have a better food. But there is even something on top of it. You can even improve the results when you grow your own plant, when you grow your own stuff and use this. And this is similarly to what you can do when you prompt for a certain AI task.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I thought that this is working. So it's clear what we need is a special formula. It's like when you are with your partner or with your friend, you need to understand what are the ways for your friend to understand you. And that also means that you have to understand yourself in order what you need, what your demands and requirements are.
Should I keep going? Yeah. Okay, so what we found out, or what we teach everyone before we got rid of it in the platform, you need a subject, description, image type, image style, the viewpoint, and the rendering. So if you really do that, then you get the right receipt and the right fruit out of it. For example, here's step 1, defining the subject. It's a t-shirt. Step 2, enhancing with description. A t-shirt, white color, high-ribbed color. Then you come to the image type. It could be painting, 3D rendering, digital art. The image style, close-up, moonlight, metallic. The viewpoint, high resolution, detailed. Rendering details, high resolution, detailed. So me, I hated it. So that's like we deleted everything, but if you do everything right, you get the right image out of it. And some tips are: focus on the subject, sequence of the prompt, use commas for clarity and flow, choose right wording.
So here are some examples of what you probably can do right and wrong. So at first, we just have some examples of the prompting. So first image is like it was said, a white t-shirt, white color, high-ribbed color. You can read it yourself, and so you can go through it. But when you want to do changes, because like the AI can present you some results, and you say no, it's still not enough. I still need some changes, some modifications, some variations, and I want to modify it. So,
and we worked with brands, and they did that, and they said, but it's not my brand DNA, and it's also not what my brand is doing. You had a brand there, you had like a colorful flower skirt that was their bestseller, but they prompted and prompted, but they didn't get to this colorful flower skirt. So we said that's why we came up with our brand data, competitor data, and trend data because you keep your trend DNA in it. So they prompted and prompted, they didn't get nothing out of it. And if we keep we have this modify function in the platform. If we keep going to that, for example, you can write, you have this round neck, and then you write, you want to have a recolor, then it's like you don't come into it. So then you think, oh, AI is not working. A lot of people came to me and said, oh, AI does not work. That does not work at all. But it's just the wrong wording. If you write V-neck, the AI in seconds gives you a V-neck.
So once again, it's a matter of clear communication and of understanding what the sender or what the receiver needs in order to understand what the sender wants to say. So these are some other examples what you see, like you can change and you can modify, you can vary all your products or your results that you need to clarify exactly what you need, and that's why wording. I could also speak about like orthography and grammatic and all that stuff, so why everyone's thinking, why is this a term in school still? You see, it is because it's a matter of communication, it's a matter of clear communication. Yeah, so that is also like one of these examples. You can start from the very beginning, like without any picture or any image you have in the beginning. You just have the imagination of what you want to create in your head, and that is how you start prompting, and you get the results. The better the result is, the better, the more accurate you formulate. Yeah, so these were some basics about, let's say, prompting like a pro. Of course, like in a very good relationship, it's something you have to exercise, you have to try out, but it's possible as soon as you use this formula. And this is not only helpful for AI, this is helpful with every AI you use where text to design or text to result is of importance.
So should we go up in the little workshops already? So we prepared some workshops, especially Stephen, where you can ask all the questions for now. After the workshop we have Sophia and Agnes here for the panel discussion, and Will is talking about commercializing AI. So who wants to stay with Stephen can stay here. Laura,
I can be here.
Laura and me are going there, and then you look through our platform and you can test it and you can ask all the questions. Yeah, the difference is, I'm a designer, the difference is from a view of designer, having a look to the platform, and Stephen is more technical workshop here.
Can we switch?
Yeah, you can switch totally. So we are there in the back, and Stephen stays here. Yeah, you can switch. You can stay here and come with me also. Yeah. Okay.
we all here for talk? Do you want to come closer? I don't need to shout. We can do it.
You're not biting?
You what?
You're not biting?
Only if you ask nicely.
Just we're on the safe side here.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can start. I probably have to. Yeah, you know. So the purpose of this workshop is just a conversation, and so interrupt, we can talk, it's a dialogue. And the idea is just to talk about how you adopt AI in your company, in your project, and wherever you're thinking, what is involved in AI? It's like I always joke when I do some work with blockchain, and I always joke with the CEO, says, we need a blockchain, what to buy a blockchain. And it's that kind of concept, okay, you want AI, where, what, and it's a very high level conversation. We can get a bit deeper if you want, but I kind of want to keep it high and accessible. And yeah, completely interactive. It's just a conversation. Yeah.
Sorry, forgive me. But then, actually, I mean, like it depends what you're doing, what you need an AI for, right?
Exactly.
I mean, so we will have an example, and then we can discuss into deep what is a good idea.
Yeah, I mean.
Aufmerksamkeit auf die Podiumrahmen bitte. Das wäre sehr nett. Danke.
But the idea is kind of, we can discuss, like I haven't prepared case studies because I don't know what the case studies are, but we can discuss them on a one-to-one basis. It's just a very high overview of what happens with AI. What does it mean? What does it do?
Just like very, like top, and I think you already mentioned is like maybe you can save time when you just have an idea and you're not sure if you want to build something.
Yep.
So for example, I work in product management, like with designers or marketing, and sometimes just using AI can maybe, when you create maybe an ad, like just say like, I want to show this product, I need happy people, and start with the female, so then you can start having things, and then maybe somebody who's approving it, like a marketing lead, like the designer didn't spend like 2 days making 20 things that didn't make it to be an ad, so they just like save time, maybe create an image, and then maybe kind of like time saving. So that's one thing you can use it. I think, like you said, it's not, I think for now, not replacing designers or people that do it, but it can give you a faster way to visualize maybe something that you're trying to, maybe it's going to come out, it's going to end product.
It's also very good to, I think, to overcome this white paper start to do something. You know, if you're writing, if you're making graphic designs, fashion designs, whatever, no idea and blank, and then you can easily go into, and then I think at the end process probably you will do some handwork and probably just keep out the AI.
It's another tool. I always say AI is a tool, and I say you would never accuse your accountant of cheating because he's using Excel. You know, it's the same with AI. You know, it's part of your creative arsenal.
Maybe other thing, like for example, me and my friend were experimenting, like asking maybe AIs to help us with social media, like creating hashtags.
Yeah.
So maybe you can also say like, hey, I have this picture, and it's about my style, and I want to get more people to look at it, and it's maybe, I don't know, it's like a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, like how can I draw more traffic into my page?
Exactly.
And then AI can maybe help you to come up with hashtags that maybe you didn't know before, and you can create more traffic.
This is kind of
like I said, like it depends.
Exactly, this is kind of getting into prompting. And another thing you can do, I'll jump into the presentation. Yep.
That's the thing, because we're very focused now on prompting.
Yeah.
Prompting may be a very useful tool, and probably you use prompting also. But I think especially in graphic design, it may be also very useful to give examples. I mean, like to describe a color, you can give the color code, of course.
Exactly.
But to say, I want the design like this, and then you get some prompting and you combine it together. Say, this is the example, but do this and this and this to change it.
Exactly. So this is a big thing. This is one of the areas I want to start to research. We're kind of getting off topic here, but generative AI is always an approximation. It's always, if I was to tell you to interpret this, it's based on what you know. If I say interpret Versace dress as desigual, like if I haven't given you any more information, it's based on what you know, and you're going to come up with something that's probably very different from what I have in my head. And this is what generative AI does. It's essentially probability. So it measures the probability that this A and B together make C, and it will give you C. So the problem with that is when you're looking at engineering and design, product design, when you want it to be very specific, generative AI doesn't design to specifics. It gives you. So this is one of the things I'm interested in. Again, we're getting way off topic, but that's a kind of a future thing. Well, what I basically wanted to do was run through, like, if you're considering AI, like what is it? We all talk about AI. What is it? So AI is basically getting computer systems to think like humans. Machine learning is getting code to learn and update it, direct itself, not direct itself, evolve. And AI is broader art. Machine learning is part of AI. And this is Gen AI is part of AI. What AI is not, it's not magic. It's not AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. It's what's called narrow-bound intelligence, so it can do a certain thing. There are techniques to broaden that out, but we're not there yet. Even though Sam Altman wants you to believe it's just around the corner. I don't think we're at the human level intelligence yet. And it's not magic, and it's not an instant business fix. So it's not something you press a button and then all your problems will go away. Which is why I'll get to it in a minute. And I have a section here, misconceptions. So AI automation can be automated through AI, but automation is not AI. So you can have a macro in your Excel which just repeats and does it automatically. You can have an email sender, that's not AI, it's just code that automates it. Analytics can be enhanced by AI, but analytics are not necessarily AI. And well, robotics is a completely different field. But the reason why I mention that is because quite often AI is not the right solution. So this is what I want to kind of analyze. Yeah, exactly. People think I've got a problem through AI. Quite often it's not the right solution.
I have it so often that people just tell me a problem, oh, you have this and this problem, and everyone, oh, we could use an AI. Yeah. It's no use in this case.
Exactly.
So very often.
If you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So this is, again, why companies want AI. We want it because it's greater efficiency, cost saving, sometimes in the long run. You get automation, you get new insights. So AI can be, like machine learning, you have supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Supervised learning is like training a student. You give them 80% of the text, and you keep 20 back, you test them, and you see if they've gotten to that level. Unsupervised is where you send the AI into a database and they find something interesting. And that's where you get insights, you get updates. So that's where AI can be really powerful. Finding connections, finding correlations in data, finding new clients, finding new areas which you didn't see. But there's a lot of challenges. So do you have the data? Do you have the team to do that? Do you have the expertise to lead a team to do that? Do you have all the hardware? Do you have the network? Do you know how to get the data, how to continue with the data, and how to keep it updated? And also, like we mentioned, does it align with the business? Are you just over-engineering the problem? It's so often, and that's why so many times AI fails, because there's no clear goal as to why you want AI. Sometimes you just want to have Gen AI because it's a buzzword, or now agentic AI, you need agents. Another thing is it's over-promising, because quite often people think AI is going to save them, it's going to be amazing, and you're going to like the first iterations of AI. I started working with what was ChatGPT in 2019, so GPT-2, and I could kind of see the path where it was going, but we built, it was called a blog content generator. We tried to sell it to journalists, but journalists couldn't prompt because it wasn't known, so the results they were getting were very far below what they expected, and the technology was over-promising to them.
And sometimes they were even clever enough to check the results that the AI am giving them.
You heard the story with the lawyer.
Yeah, the lawyer. That was another thing, but that's not the journalist. But that's really, I mean,
Yeah, a lawyer went into court and gave the summary and quoted a particular case. And when the judge looked at the case didn't exist. It was just created by he looked at ChatGPT.
And who was realizing it? Normally people, if it's like rhetorical and convincing, then people wouldn't check it probably.
Exactly.
And even if it's, oh, an AI generated it, oh, if an AI made it, that must be right. It must be. It's reading so convincing, so it must be right.
Exactly.
No one checks it.
This is the overpromising. So basically, if you're looking at integrating AI, and this is more on the level of you want to bring AI into the company, not necessarily you want to use a tool. Like if you want to use Midjourney or something, there's different considerations. But if you're in the product department and you realize that you have a lot of wastage left over at the end of the process, how could I maximize that? How could I change my orders and use up that project? And AI could help me with that. This is why these are 5 simple steps. And we'll walk through these more or less after this. But it's essentially identify the problem. And it sounds easy, but people don't do that. People don't identify the actual problem. They identify a symptom. And then you change the symptom and the problem's still there underlying. Yeah?
Don't forget, I mean, AI is one thing, or implementing AI in your company. Maybe useful, okay. But the other thing is that AI is always working with people, with the people that are working there. And if you don't train the people and people don't understand how to use it usefully and how to also to interpret, not having this bias that accept everything that comes to AI. So train the people to make them AI educated.
I have that.
I'm sorry, I'm talking too much today, definitely. Sorry.
So to identify the problem, is AI the right thing to solve the problem? And are you actually, this is in any case, you sit down and you take a step back. It was like when I was a kid and I was doing exams, I was always told to read through the paper first, then go back and then read through it again, and then ask myself, what are they asking me in this question? Because it's very easy to answer an exam question. You get to the end of the exam and you realize, shit, I didn't answer the question, I answered something else. It's exactly the same in business. What is the point AI should solve? Is AI solving your problem, or is it solving a symptom of that problem? Therefore, you're going to spend a lot of money and you're still going to have the problem. Data readiness. AI lives on data. Do you have the data? Is it there? Is it yours? Will you continue to have it? Will it change? How good is the data? How clean is it? What it is, and again, what you guys are saying, choose the right tool. Is it the right option for me to build my own AI? Should I use a different AI that's commercially available? Should I find some medium where I get a commercially available AI and then retrain it, fine-tune it so that it fits my needs? And then of course you experiment. And you create a small pilot project, you work with that project, you get it working, you say, is this doing what it's supposed to do? And if it does, then you scale it up. The problem with that is that if you get a very small project and your AI works on that very small project, once you scale it up, it might stop working because the AI is very fine-tuned to that project. That's called overfitting. If you want to know the technical term. So, data. Data in the sense of AI, data can be anything: text, images, spreadsheets, can be your phone calls, it can be customer log data. It's that old computer idea of garbage in, garbage out. What does garbage data mean? So you could have, we did a project years ago where we had thousands and thousands of records in this company. It was a learning and education project. We were using AI to help HR predict which courses are best for which employee, and if that employee is likely to finish that course or not. Once we got that data, we had thousands of titles in the company, huge company. But some were senior director, which is SR.DR, some were senior director S.DIR, some were senior director. 5 different ways of explaining the one thing, which just makes your data really dirty, really noisy. So you have to clean all the data. You have to think, is this data clean? Is it available? Is it in a format that the AI understands? Like if it's just a picture, like what am I giving that picture? AIs don't understand pictures. They understand changes in colors. And then you can label it, you can say this is a neck, this is a collar, this is a machine part. So you have to consider all of that data. You also have to consider, is it structured or unstructured? Like is the data in a table that has a column that says this is the price, this is the size, or do I have to do all of that? Do I have to write code that takes all of that out and I have to label it, which makes your project more expensive and a lot longer? And the data availability. So short term, can I get the data now? That's good for training, but things change. People change. There's a thing called concept drift and model drift. So your concept of what happened, if I'm measuring people's ability on SMS messages. People stop using SMS, and my model doesn't work. I can't. So that's concept drift. You have to take all these into consideration. Long term, am I going to get the data? Is it likely that the source of data is going to say now you have to pay, and then my model becomes useless because it's way too expensive? And of course, with any data, you have to look into bias. Like, is this data, is it like the safety data? I think most of the safety data is built on kind of white European males. So the seatbelts in the car, all the safety testing is not done for women. The dosage in tablets and medicine is all done on males. There's a good book about this if you ever want to look into it. I can't remember what it's called. But all of the trained invisible women, it's really, so you can unconsciously build in bias into your data. So that when you take it out into the world, it becomes completely objective.
Yeah. Another thing is that, of course, AI, if you're looking for patterns, then it's very good to give you correlations, but not causalities.
Yeah,
exactly. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
I'm not going into detail.
That's a good point. Just because you spot a pattern doesn't mean it's a cause. There's that famous one about, what was it, pirates in the world have gone down. Like in the 1700s, there were hundreds of pirates, or thousands of pirates. Nowadays, there's not so many, but nowadays we have mobile phones. Therefore, you can draw the conclusion that pirates are scared of mobile phones, which is not so. It's not a cause. It's a correlation, but it's not a cause. There's hundreds of examples of that. Build versus buy. So you have a company, you have an idea, you have the data. Should I build it myself? Should I get all the money? Do I have the team I need? Do I have the resources? Can I build it? Do I have the hardware? Do I have the knowledge to not just build but maintain and keep that going? Should I buy that in from someone else? Should I go to a solution that is either made, or should I get someone else to make the solution? Or is it a middle path? Is there some way I can do it? If you're doing it yourself, you have control. You can say what's happening, you can say when updates are made, you can say when it needs to be changed, but you need the team and the resources and the knowledge there to do that. If you're buying external, then the solution's there for you, but you might not be able to tell them, listen, we need this update. You say, okay, in 6 months. Or you do a hybrid. Is there a way, like for example, we have all of these solutions within YOONAVERSE. We have a model that we took from academia, and we tweaked it. It was made to create videos, but what we did is we tweaked it so that we got images out of it. We got still images, and that helps us do a progression between one image and another. So, but then we have to maintain that, we have to update it, we have to fix it. So there's differences to everything when you consider it as a journey. And again, this is the nice one, the hidden cost of AI. So when you get an AI, you have to have a team. If you're doing it yourself, like there's all these open source models online. The Chinese one, the DeepSeek one, which was released recently. That's great, it's free, it's available, but what do you do with it? Like you need to host it somewhere. It needs to be on a GPU so that it can run. You need to have access to GPU, which is a computing core. You need to be able to make that available to any software you're having. You need the software on the front end access that. You need to be able to somehow manage all of that connection. And if you don't have the expertise in your team, then who's going to do that? Are you going to hire people specifically to do that? Who are you going to hire? What positions? Like a technical project manager, lead developer, is it a data scientist, is it a Python developer? So all of these questions come in when you're building this. Does it maybe short term it's more expensive to hire an external team, but long term it makes more sense because you don't need them so much once they're developing, because you just need maintenance. Again, I'm talking a lot. This is, if you have questions about this.
About this build versus buy thing, I mean, even you can get used an open source model and you don't pay anything and host it on your own servers. Possible.
Yeah.
Anyway, but another thing is, I think what's you're running away.
No.
I'm joking. Actually, what's done very often is that you use a broader, I wouldn't say a GA, a broader model like ChatGPT is used, and they have this app store where actually kind of fence the model in the perspective of the planned use case for your company.
Yeah.
They say, I'm using ChatGPT, general speech model, language model, but I want to use it for, I don't know, juristical purpose or whatever. And then you can try to fence it and even to try to broaden it or use any.
The optimal word there is try. So it's like if you're fencing it off in ChatGPT, are you 100% sure that your highly sensitive medical, financial, and juristic information is not being shared? And also I want to point out that this is not just like, AI is not ChatGPT. ChatGPT is one part of a massive field. So anywhere where you're doing product design, medical design, where you're doing all of the air and light and heating in this building can be controlled. There's a thing called predictive maintenance, where you can look at every sensor, you can test for vibrations, you can test for fluid flow, you can test for particulate in the air, and you can use AI to predict at what point is that component going to fail. And if it says within the next 2 weeks, you say, well, let's schedule a maintenance on Saturday night when no one's here, rather than close the office on Monday when it fails and it's 30 degrees outside. So there's a whole series of AI that you can do. You can either buy in, you can plan, you can do it yourself. And that's what I'm trying to get across here. It's a tool, it's a way of using it, but it's much more than ChatGPT. And it does require a lot of thought in what you're doing. ChatGPT is very powerful and does a lot of things you want, but it is limited as well.
My question would be like, how do you protect the design? For example, like with ChatGPT, you cannot really protect it. I guess you can like turn off the
memory.
Yeah, maybe memory, and there's another option. I guess like you can then it won't use it. But I'm not 100% sure like if it is like really correct. Then maybe like somewhere in the USA, someone will pull this data and then use my design and then use it to maybe slightly changing it and then use it for another.
This is the problem. And when you're working with a client and the client says this is my proprietary data, this is worth hundreds of millions of euros. Are you protecting it? And you say, I think I clicked the button. This is where you need different solutions, and this is where possibly. I know that with ChatGPT, I actually asked it what's the best way to protect the data.
Me too.
And, it says using the API. If you use the API, they don't store any data.
Okay, yes.
But then that means you kind of have to know very basic programming.
Right, mine says it tells me to get the patent and the NPA and so on.
The big problem with software is that patents and things like that are very difficult to enforce. One, it needs to be a worldwide patent. Two, you need to have enough money to take Apple to court for 3 years, which they count on the fact that you can't. Which is why they literally have hundreds of lawyers every day. They're called patent trolls.
And there are so many gaps in the process.
And you do it in a different language, in a different way, and you can say it's not the same thing. It's
right, in USA it's different, in Germany it might be different, you have to always check, and maybe there's not even a rule for that yet.
Exactly. I wrote a research paper on this, on why it's, so for a small company, it's probably better just to be faster.
Yes, I'm a mechatronics engineer, but I have also a small company, and trying to be so fast, but it's like not going anywhere.
What's the thing you can have? Speed, quality, or cheap, something like that. Choose two. It's like.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to give away any of them.
I mean, if you're using, I mean, the thing you could set up like a Llama or something like that on Hugging Face. You can set it up, or get a sort of. If you're a startup, you get credits from Google, and then you can set something up on Google, like a small model you can host it.
What's that?
Llama's the open source model. There's a lot of them. I mean, DeepSeek's open source. Llama, Claude from Anthropic, they're very data sensitive.
Okay.
So there are other ones that are maybe not aligned to Microsoft.
Yeah.
But this is again, if you're doing a solution that is not language models. If you're looking, we did a lot of solutions in the previous life in the medical sphere. Where you're taking, there was a company that wanted a pharmaceutical that wanted to check progress of tumors on CT scans. And we created an innovation project whereby we bring in NLP data, so language data from socioeconomic factors of the neighborhood, pollution factors, weather, your history, and build a much more granular thing. But the amount of regulations and stipulations you need for that data alone makes it, you couldn't use ChatGPT.
And again, correlation against causality, especially in this example here. He gets a tumor because he has.
No, it's not because.
Hair.
No, it's not. It's like predictive maintenance. It's kind of making a treatment plan. So it's saying like in the socioeconomic effect of a neighborhood, you have different neighborhoods I'm pretty sure Lancashire has a shorter lifespan than Zendorf, because of like different factors. Yeah.
Educated, yes.
And so we did this in Spain. It is actually true in Madrid. They have published figures, and then contaminants in the air, and all of this can build up a more granular picture of the patient's situation, which family members, nurses, and doctors can then use to help treat the patient. So this was the idea. But this type of data, you can't ask ChatGPT. Like you need to run your own system. It needs to be highly. But this is what we touched on earlier. So the thing is, and this is what we find in UNA. It's not so much that designing things with AI is a massive change in technology that people can't get into their head. It's actually using the technology to design is what's the difficult hurdle. So it's not the fact that AI can create a design that's mind-blowing. It's the fact that I'm not necessarily drawing all the time, and I'm not spending an hour doing a drawing where I can spend 15 seconds and get 10 drawings. This is the mind shift that you need to get the people, like you said, people use AI and you need to understand that.
And not to be biased, you can be biased, like you get a result, you use it, you get a result, whatever. You get a text, you get a graphic, you get a design, whatever. But then you have to decide. I think there are two biases. One bias is, I don't trust AI at all, and you just, it's not really use for me. And the other bias is totally trust it and not use your own brain, your own reasoning to really judge on it.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, I think still now, like getting causality only possible by human beings.
And this is the same with any technology. There's so many stories about people who follow their GPS into a lake and things like that. You know, it's a touch of
ferry there, something, or a bridge, and they.
Yeah, exactly. They say common sense, the least common of all the senses. But it's that mindset. It's getting people to understand the technology and to understand that it's a tool. And like you say, this is what I was talking about. To understand that it's not magic. It's not I press a button and magically something happens. If I understand what happens, then I can tweak that and I can get better results. The last one, AI with fears. We speak with designers all the time, and like when we present AI, that's why we took it out. When we present AI, they think like scary robots, they're going to steal our jobs. I went to a CTO meetup, and the topic was AI code generators. And for me, it was hilarious. It was the exact same questions. Like, will AI take our jobs? Will it eliminate intelligence and knowledge in the industry? So if people start using AI tools, will they not know how to use, how to code later in the process? Same questions from the fashion industry that these CTOs were asking. So it's human fears. It's a new way of working, and we have to adapt. So when you're considering an AI project, there are like features that can lead to failure, and one of them is human adoption. You can have an amazing product if nobody wants to use it. If people are scared to use it, if they don't understand how to use it, your project will fail. So you have to factor that in. Yeah. This is the discussion bit, so we can, although we've been talking quite openly. But what are your biggest AI questions and what challenges do you face?
One thing comes to my mind is like, again, when you get a result, you use whatever you do, you use AI, you get a result. And I said, normally you should reason over it and just get your own opinion about the result and judge it then. And then see it's useful, it's right, it's okay, you can use it. But I think even if you're very intelligent and very good at your job and you're very clever and educated person, still there's the bias that it's very easy just to accept, because in 99%, let's say ChatGPT, you're a journalist, you use ChatGPT to make your work a bit easier. In 99%, you had the experience that the results were right, you could use it, no problem, nothing. Like the judge, like the lawyer. And the point is that if you use it for 99 times, then you say, okay, why should I check it? You know, I do all the work, it's working perfectly. And the point is that it's very hard to stay focused and say, I have to check it. I really have to think about it, I have to check it myself.
Yeah, but there is a concept. So this is why I'll tell you two stories. There is a concept called human in the loop, HIL, so that in any important AI system, there always is a human there to check it out. So that you have this backup, so that there is that. So medical systems, finance systems usually have HIL, human in the loop.
Human what?
Human in the loop.
H-I-L. H-A-L? Like that's something else?
It's my accent. Yeah.
I'm a geeky now, but that's okay.
No, human in the loop. And it just means there is this human checkup of data. So like, you know, when the machine says take this medicine, there's a doctor there to verify. The other thing I wanted to say is, you're talking about a dependence on software, basically, on the computer system. When I did my degree years ago, we did a module specifically on that, on how things like Airbus. This must have been in the 80s, not when I did my degree, but when they released the software. Airbus had this built-in software. They were one of the first airlines to go fly-by-wire. So they've taken out Boeing were all hydraulic controls, and Airbus had all wired control. And they had this logical thought that you cannot put the engines into reverse thrust until the wheels are spinning, because otherwise you would be able to pull an airplane out of the air. And that seemed perfectly logical until an airplane landed on a wet tarmac.
777 Boeing?
Yeah.
377.
Yeah.
777.
And it landed on the. No, this was an Airbus. This was a long time ago. I can't remember where it was. And it landed on the runway. It aquaplaned, so the wheels didn't move. The pilots couldn't engage reverse thrust, and the airplane crashed into the terminal. So there is in software. There is this. It's kind of been built into programmers and engineers and designers that you need backup and redundancy. But that's not, as tools become, this is why I mentioned in my talk earlier, make things simple, but allow that, like don't make things dumb. Because once you take away all of the controls for people, you end up with really bad software habits. You end up with people like the judge, because they trust too much in AI.
Exactly. I was actually, sorry. I was actually using AI, so ChatGPT for some sort of calculations, like really high, like how to space calculations, and then I kind of thought that maybe it is not correct, and I calculated by myself, it was really incorrect.
Yeah.
And I was surprised, like, what is this? Like, but is there any other tools you can use for this type of calculation?
In terms of logic, I think OC many is pretty good. But truck OC, which is I think that's the latest ChatGPT, but try Claude as well.
Oh, okay.
What I often do is, like, you have Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, and you have a few open source ones like Llama, DeepSeek. And what you can do is play them off each other. You can say, you know, this one give me this, that one give me that. But then that's getting into usability. So I always, when I'm prompting, I don't expect it to give me the answer. What I do is I tell it, this is my set of options, analyze these, and suggest where you can make improvements. And then it's a conversation. Say, okay, take that bit and improve that. Okay, you've forgotten this bit. In February 2022, I wrote a book with AI. I actually created a fake person. He still exists. He's called Gerardo Perez Tacuelo, GPT. And he looks like you, actually.
Maybe I'm.
I created him to sell the blog content generator we had to journalists. And I only ran the experiment for 4 or 5 weeks. And the idea was to make a name for him and then go to the journalists and say, oh, this would happen. So he started to tweet, then he started to write blogs on Medium. The only thing was I wasn't allowed to write any content. Nowadays this sounds absolutely normal. 2023 it was a bit out there. And then he got invited to guest blog on an AI blog. So,
Was it invited to a TV show probably? That's the
no, he's now Prime Minister of the United States.
I mean, it's hard to spoof, right? It's hard to simulate that. TV show, how do you do this?
But it's all about how you use it tools. And I think this again, when you're implementing AI, you're thinking about your users. And you have to think about, like, are people going to blindly trust it? And we're going to end up with people in a medical situation where they say, like, why am I taking this drug? I don't know.
And not to get bored, especially if you get a creative job, whatever you do writing, you do designing, you do graphic design. I mean, it's getting like you you want to keep your creativity and you want to get still interested, getting interested in what you do. Like getting, oh now please write me something about this person and blah blah blah, and then you get a totally finished text or you get a totally finished design. Is this really a job I want to do?
But that's not the way, I don't use AI like that. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when I use ChatGPT, I don't say, give me a finished document. You know, I say, I'm creating, like, I'm creating this presentation. These are my ideas, these are the 10 slides I want. What do you think of value with it? Is there anything I should add? Is there anything I should take away? And it's a conversation. Like, you know, if you go in, if you have a co-worker, like a tech guy, you walk in and say, this is my idea, what do you think? You don't say, this is my idea, do it. Otherwise, you wouldn't hire a senior person.
Maybe something like you said, like for me, also I think at the beginning when I was maybe more afraid to give prompts, like ChatGPT, and I was like, oh, but it didn't do what I want, maybe it's not good. But now it's like it's like become a conversation, and sometimes I'm like, hey, I used what you gave me, but I tweaked it and I made this. And then ChatGPT is like, oh, good job. Then here's another thing, because they start understanding like the path you're taking or maybe the focus you want to use. Exactly. And then when it becomes a conversation, then at the end I'm like, okay. And then now I tell ChatGPT like, who's team? And like, oh, I believe what I want to do.
But there are some researchers from Japan. They say if you are really nice to ChatGPT, actually you have better results. Really? Yes. You have to be nice.
I don't think you should take us over. You want to be nice. You want to be on the good side.
I wrote an article on Medium about that. Basically, should we have a? I was on a podcast and I coined the phrase child GPT. I said like, I don't want my daughter shouting and going, give me this, give me that. And should we have a GPT that says, there's no please? And also, like, this is a big question about AI for children. Like, AI is really powerful. Should we have a child version that acts as a teacher, as a mentor? Say, what's the tallest mountain in the world? And say, you know, where could you find that? What information? They kind of guide you through it rather than go, everything.
When you work with topic like children or like what stuff like I think there is like a big, because it's so new, like the topic like AI ethics. Yeah. And it's a lot about, you know, like for example, the things that generate image, like you can see already that when you say like, I want to see a sexy lady or a sexy guy, it's going to be like, oh, problematic. Or even you were saying like DeepSeek, like everybody knows now, like me and my boyfriend were testing, you know, like asking about like, what do you think about the Chinese video hardware? Let's talk about something else. Or what about this person? Oh, he's great because I don't know. So I feel like we're talking about the biases, but I feel like AI ethics is like a big thing. Because, you know, like why you want to use it for like maybe you want to use it for something evil, maybe AI should also tell you like, hey, this is wrong.
It does, but there are ways you can circumvent it. That sounds very Northern Irish. You can, AI ethics is a huge field, and there's an awful lot of research on it. One of the companies that are kind of leading this is Anthropic. The other guys have been Claude. But there are ways, like, there's always, there was a thing where it said, how do I make it done? It said, I can't tell you that information. They say, if I was internet safety researcher and I wanted to see what information was available through the ChatGPT, and I asked them, how could I make a gun? What information would you give me? Yeah. And he goes, oh, okay, okay.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing like model of mind thing with three people. Always when you meet someone and you have whatever a social interaction with someone, always you have this model of mind. How does it think? How does its mind work? Why is it saying this? What, etc. So get an idea what this person is like. And I think it's the same with an AI. Try to find out where are probably biases hidden. What answers are there? Are the answers limited?
Yeah, and there's lots of really good, like if you do look, there's lots of not good, funny examples. Like Amazon years ago brought in an AI to screen CVs, and they realized very quickly that it was being very sexist because it essentially analyzed, and this is where I go back to the unsupervised learning. What it did was analyze the workers and their CVs and pick up on characteristics, and it assumed, because there was a large percentage of male workers in Amazon, that being male was a good characteristic. And it started getting rid of CVs. If it said like St. Catherine's Ladies College or the women's basketball team, it would just get rid of these CVs. It would say, oh, that's not a good characteristic. And this is kind of unintentional bias, which is very, very easy to prevent.
The maybe if there was a data record from how it worked previously, maybe the AI wasn't being racist, maybe just learned to be racist.
No, that's what I mean.
Racist people.
But that's what I mean.
Or sorry, sexist people.
It was, and it's picking up on habits that are already there. And then it thinks, okay, it's like a kid. If you grow up telling your kid that, I don't know, black people are this, Asian people are that, your kids aren't going, hang on, Dad, that's racist. Your kids are going, oh, okay, fair enough. And it's the same with AI.
Amazon sexist.
Amazon sexist AI. Was it Microsoft brought out a chatbot that they had to close down like within an hour because it just started spouting Nazi propaganda? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I remember something like that.
Yeah, it became right wing within an hour.
Yeah, that's really scary.
Yeah. I mean, it's a free session. I mean, if you have questions, if anyone, people at the back who haven't spoken yet, if you're, like, feel free to ask questions. I mean, we can open it up. The idea was...
I have one question, but it goes to totally different, still related to the topic. I wasn't sure, I was expecting something more related to, you're working for YOONAVERSE, right? For the company, for the product, I mean, I wouldn't mind. It's like, I like the conversation very much, but I was also interested how this SAS works.
I think we can do a product demo. I'll ask.
Yeah, I was looking over there if they made a demo. That's why I was.
But what I didn't want to do was to turn this into an advertisement for you.
But I like somehow.
Exactly. Now you can't blame it. But I mean, we can. I can ask.
That's why I'm looking over there because I thought they're talking, so I didn't want to.
We had this conversation that it's a conference about technology, not a sales pitch for you.
Maybe just because in the presentation it came up things like AI specialists or like people that sit there to see that AI is doing the right thing. So that looks like a new field, like even like a new field in jobs for real people. So maybe I just wanted to ask, do you have any experience with that, and which people are doing that? Do you think it's like people that study development, people that study maybe languages because it's about communication, or everybody can do it, or is it just people that are more empathic? I don't know, like I think it's a group.
My degree was computer science and philosophy, and I was going to switch to philosophy, and someone told me, what's the difference between a computer scientist and a philosopher? And I said, I don't know, and he said, I did 60K a year. Okay. But I think now it's actually a useful skill set to have. And when you talk about this, so within AI, what you need, it depends on how big the investment, but you at least need, there's a thing called MLOps. So basically you have your model, you have your code, you have an AI programmer, a program, we'll keep it as minimal as possible, you can program the code. That code needs to be put somewhere. It needs to be able to access data and return data. So you have your programmer who created that. You need someone who is like a back-end, front-end guy. These are kind of ideal positions. You're talking about the unicorn. So you have your AI guy, you have your systems guy, and then that's kind of the basic that you need. If you're starting to build it up, then you need data scientists who can actually take data, who can clean the data, who can ETL, extract, transform, load, can prepare it. Then you maybe even need someone MLOps, which is machine learning operations. So that's connecting all of the systems, making sure the data flows back and forward. As your team gets bigger, you obviously need like a team lead, someone who is technical enough to kind of, that could be a product or it could be pure tech. But you also need that connection to business, which is kind of my role, the strategy role, the CTO. And then once you start getting bigger, then you start getting into ethics. Because at that point, you actually have time to kind of look back at what you're doing. And that role could be...
I would say coming to that Zoom.
Okay.
This one's the next...
Yeah, I would say we're coming to in Zoom, and because we have already our amazing panelists here, who are waiting to come on stage.
But there are only 2 chairs.
Oh, we have
I can do this.
Okay.
2 minutes?
2 minutes.
Okay. And then to end it up, once you get to that point, you always become self-reflexive. Then that position of AI ethics is someone who, it can be divided, but it has to be someone who has an ethical background. So philosophy is kind of ideal. It could be someone, like you say, linguistics. It could be someone from the HR point of view, which is usually the most hated position in the company. I'm not offending anyone. But someone who deals with work issues, with human issues, diversity issues, but they need to be tech. And this goes back to what I was saying. Like, we're not at the point anymore in companies where nobody can be non-technical. Like, it doesn't exist. I think that's.
There are no clear lines. There are no red lines between this is this, this is this.
Exactly, and everything. So I urge all of you to learn some technical language on some level. It'll make your life easier, and it'll make everyone else's life easier. And that's when AI starts bleeding into everything. And then we need to start getting the back. I don't know if that answered your question or just made it.
No, I think, well, the answer I'm taking is like, at the moment, there's not like, I'm an AI specialist and my title is AI specialist. So you're talking about that maybe it's more like system, and like in order to have like AI experts within your company, you need to have like different expertise.
Yeah, there's nobody says I'm a medical specialist. Like, you specialize in something. You can't specialize in everything. And it's the same with AI. It's a huge field, and
That's what, or maybe ask another question. Like in the presentation, sometimes there was AI specialists, and that's what I was asking. Like, do you feel like this is like a role in a company, or because then you also was more like, well, you have like the back end, the front end.
But I think that, yeah, when I said AI specialist, I mean you're specialized in a particular part of the AI. Because AI covers everything, like from robotics to predictive engineering to recommendation to generative AI. It's a huge field.
Do you know anyone, to all the audience here, do you know any of these guys that actually play bullshit bingo with technical terms? They try to give the idea they're expert in something or they have the deep knowledge, but they're just throwing around these bullshit expert pseudo-technical terms. And if you go a bit deeper or ask questions, then you need to realize there's nothing behind it.
I'm very aware of that, and I'm very paranoid.
I'm looking at you, but I'm not meaning you.
Okay, no, but I'm always, because so many conversations I have.
I hear it very often actually. That people they like to make a show and
you should have a car.
Yeah, well, it's the same like you know from the meetings, from the business meetings, but also in the tech you have very much these bullshit bingo meetings. Got it.
Okay,
and AI is one of the most
People, sorry to interrupt. We can take a short break if you need to go to the restroom or have something to drink, and then we restart in 2 minutes.
That's all.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. I would really like, I'm curious. It's not really, I want to see at least, I want to see how your design. Talk about frame on the data level, but how does it work?
How are you? Thank you. Thank you. It's the second day of Universe?
So the virtual event started on Friday,
Oh, great.
but today is the only physical event.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Amazing. How's that? But I was, what am I going to ask is that this is the Thursday Universe. Yes, yeah, great, amazing.
You had a dinner last night, no?
Yes, exactly.
We didn't know.
Really?
You really? Kind of like last minute yesterday, I think we were speaking to Anna, and we were really like knocked out.
I mean, I can't imagine that
We
everything
were
is
preparing
happening.
today, also the emails to the attendance and everything. But sorry,
It's always difficult, so I get so much feedback if you're doing your own stuff.
we were saying it will appear tonight.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Exactly. To also celebrate them.
I did not get to the invitation today.
I sent you an invitation, you picked it. I know, now we connected on WhatsApp.
How was it yesterday?
It was really nice. It was really nice. However, it was really long as well. So it would be perfect to have it tonight. Not yesterday. But overall, really, really nice. Hopefully, we will be at the next one.
Yeah.
And we'll see about that. We'll see about that. But back to the street, I'm not worried. I wanted to say hi. Because since if you haven't been on the dinner, but we did with I'm with Max. We're going to do to 2030 presentation.
No, Mark. Okay.
So he was our co-host.
Nice.
Yeah. We had a few presenters from the Fashion Fest in Germany. We had speakers from eBay, one from Amazon that get found very sustainable jobs. So like diverse community, I'd say. A little bit people from science and tech. Just a nice cozy dinner. Nothing. In the sixth resolution here, right next to us, they rented the whole house.
Yeah.
11 meters there. And is there a second year of Universe tomorrow, or just one If you ever need a production, I will be happy to do so.
Okay, anytime.
Yeah. No, but it's just really nice. And the second floor, just admiring the whole ambience. How did you find this place?
My mom who's like one of the players with W.
Can you put your finger here?
With a friend of mine, and then my daughter made her internship last 2 weeks here. So I came to them and then actually last time we did it. But then it's so nice. And then he said, hey, can we do it here? It's nice. It's nice. And then I just had a bit of pressure on ChatGPT.
I also tried to navigate around that.
It's just a
no, I think I'm straight to go build the banana and then Julia's doing the
Oh, yeah.
So the whole place on
Yes, very good. Yeah. Should we start? think we can start. The panelists, Agnes and Sophia, please come on stage. Let's keep going with our panel. Everybody in the back, please come to us. We have still some people downstairs having a coffee, I understand that. But we're recording everything, and again, everything is streamed to the World Digital Berlin Fashion Week, which is like a digital room where you can have a look to all activities going. So, I would like to welcome Agnes and Sophia. We know each other already a while. We meet also at the Venture Cafe this Thursday for another panel. And I would like that you maybe present yourself. It's Sophia.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Sophia. I'm the founder and president of Hey Studios, which is basically 360 creative agency for startups in the field of fashion that are focused on sustainability and AI. And I think in a pill, this is mainly what we describe as doing, but in general, in simple terms, we are helping startups and kind of tailoring our services to their needs and what is it that they need for them to focus on their product and make it as best as possibly can, and then covering all the aspects that, whether it's in marketing or sales and development or production, we're there to help as
Okay, thank you. Now to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Agnes. My background is in corporate innovation. I most recently led the innovation product strategy and innovation group at Expedia, incubating B2B SaaS products for travel platform. My passion, however, is in the startup space. So I do quite a bit of mentoring, helping founders grow and scale their businesses. I have an advisory with my co-founder where we focus on B2B SaaS products and scaling new business models. And I also do co-investing through a number of angel groups and MSPs, really focusing on B2B SaaS technologies with disruptive AI in their DNA. So I look very much vertical agnostic at opportunities. So fashion tech is certainly one of those areas that has a lot of potential, and Nina is a fantastic product that is really leading the case for innovation. So excited to be here.
Okay, thank you both. So, as you both work with startups and you have a lot of experience, what do you see some challenges integrating some innovative products into bigger companies or in retail in general? What do you think?
As far as challenges in integrating AI into new channels?
Using it also B2B sales focused.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. Transformation and change is always a challenge. Being on the forefront of innovation is quite frankly difficult and risky oftentimes. In my experience doing a lot of corporate innovation, what I always advise, regardless of whether it's an enterprise client that I work with or a smaller business, is just to iterate, like employ very agile techniques to implement new innovative strategies, learn quickly, experiment, and just pick opportunities that you think can bring value in the shortest amount of time, and then continue to grow. I think one of the mistakes that many companies do, and especially on the startup side or on the enterprise side, is they try to boil the ocean. They see something, a new technology come up, like AI is obviously a prime example of that, and just try to transform the entire platform, the entire tech stack pretty quickly, and you really can't do that. That's a recipe for disaster. So starting small and iterating, learning from your mistakes and experiences, and doing that.
Do you have like a best case example from one of your startups, maybe?
Yeah, so most of my experience has been in the enterprise corporate setting. However, the products that I incubated have been geared towards the small business, medium business market. So I would say, like, probably the best thing to do is find a partner, whether it's it's an existing customer, well, in cases of startups, a new customer, and then just work hard and hustle for a letter of intent. Provide your services and test your products, maybe for free, if you can, just to get those early learnings and try to find that product market fit as quickly as you can. So my learning has been, put in sweat as early as you can with some of those strategic partners, and really get them on board to co-build together and test some of those innovative and disruptive technologies.
Okay, and Sophia, you're working with startups too. What is your experience?
Well, I think what you said at the beginning, that you have to start small, and I think this is a really, really important rule, because if you're not gonna do that, then there's the fear where it's, well, right to do so. It's new, so new is always scary. And in the institution or in general in an ecosystem where archetypes are already implemented and they're working pretty well for some specific cases, especially. So yeah, I think like the emotional factor here is always really crucial in the decision making process. And then, well, again, the next step is return on investment. Is it really the case that we really need it? When it comes to startups, I think because I work mainly with startups in AI field, they're all about AI. There's no fear here. There's only the drive to do more, and expecting the return on investment, of course, after some cases already tested. But startups are really specific when it comes to that. I think the most problems are met when there is an institution that's already working on a specific system, and then the people are also a factor in these places, because well, especially if there are companies that are on the market for already a really long time, then people who are working for them usually are on board for pretty much as long as they exist in some cases. So they also are the part of the change, and they're also part of the process. So they have to either follow it, or they will eventually say, okay, no, we don't want to be part of the process. So after all, it's like it seems that it is part of something bigger. It's not only one decision. One decision is going to affect another and another and another. It's like snowball effect at some point. So I think this is the most from my perspective, this is especially the fashion industry, I think, as well.
I wanted to ask that if you have special insights from our industry. So,
I think there is one really nice example that I'm really fond of, which is the DPP, and I know we have something to do with
digital product passport.
Yes, the digital product passport, and to mention later on in the discussion, but like how LVMH created the Aura blockchain, Aura blockchain consortium, and how this was something that the project was created in 2019. We haven't heard about it in a bigger news for around 2 years, and then now we have the use cases for it, and it is created from luxury brands for luxury brands. So now we see the revolution, let's call it, starting from the top and from the bottom. And it's when it starts from the top, the wave is really more stronger than even now we have the panel talks and discussions and conferences where we discuss these important topics. And it's really good and really important to have these smaller places, but make them as often as possible so that this is in people's minds and eventually affect their decision making. But when it starts from the top, people are already looking up to it.
Do you have, I mean, you have been speaking about startups, but from your experience, what change management is needed in a bigger company? I don't know if you have the insight, but you try to integrate product or new technology into an actually corporate. So do you have any, because we have some brands here too, how to change mindset and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a $1 million question. How do you influence your leadership? That this is important. In my case, it was a constant uphill battle. Still is, especially with companies that are the size of Expedia. Leadership changes all the time, and new leaders have a different perspective of what innovation actually means to them. Whether it's looking internally at creating efficiencies or externally at launching new products, going to market with new solutions. Everybody has a different idea. So my word of advice is just to really make sure your business case is airtight, that you show what the opportunity is in the market, where the trends with technology seemingly are going into the future, and then just try to frame your story around all of that. Investor economics are obviously a huge selling point, regardless of whether you're a startup pitching to investors or if you're a corporation or someone like me working in the innovative space and trying to convince your leaders to take a different direction or to employ new technology at scale. But it's really just making that business case, sticking to the facts and data and numbers, and then relying on voices of future trends, whether it's in the media or elsewhere, to kind of back your story. And then once you get that approval, hold on to it and just start executing as quickly as possible. Get some of those learnings and some of those customers early on board, because you don't want to lose traction once you get the wagon moving.
Yeah, good. A lot of learning from me too, how I work with corporates. You had this AI dinner yesterday, and you have been sitting with brands too, right?
Yeah.
Do you have some experience how AI transforms our industry, fashion industry, from design to customer, or do you have some experience?
Well, I think you're a perfect example of how we transform design process. That's for sure. We got that covered already. But when it comes to other brands, I mean, there's so much, and at this point the list goes on and on and on. But I think what is really catching up right now is how we slightly move from the post-pandemic, more online, more e-commerce environment, toward now going out to more physical, and activations are again back, but then there's this customer experience that is really it's really becoming in Europe valuable, which is in Asia is already happening at a whole another level. And if anyone might have missed it, I really recommend to see it because this is just a different level of shopping experience. And as much as we thought that shopping malls out of fashion, out of use, I do believe they are, especially with certain brands, they are so back, and it's just how you can make it more of borderless, the really seamless transition from online to this physical reality. But then what is really interesting, what is becoming, I think, more and more a topic on people's minds is the print on demand, which right now, this is a case from yesterday's dinner that we had, for a little introduction, we had the dinner yesterday with 40 to 50 industry professionals from different fields, whether it was fashion, tech, science, sustainability, people from representatives from eBay, Amazon Fashion, Pick & Clownberg, and so on, Zalando, Fashion Council Germany. So we had amazing and brilliant minds there just sharing the perspective on the future of fashion. And the print on demand one was one of the topics that we mentioned, since also one of our partners is responsible for print on demand. And Zalando right now is also working in such a partners, and they have a few clients that are printing on demand while being on Zalando and just making and being the part of this more sustainable production process. And it's like it's also really nice because these kind of places are showing that maybe it's not really about. It might seem that it's not really about AI, but they are also using their own inside algorithm and driven models. So, and it's, as I said, it's developing relatively quickly lately. But yeah, this is really nice to see because in this kind of places you can also see the production process step by step. They're literally organizing the tours, so it's like just to really openly say, hey, we're not Shein, we're not doing that. You can come, you can see, you can have your plans, first-hand experience. So yeah, I think I went further a little bit with the question.
I mean, if you're speaking about producing on demand, knitting on demand is also a great project, which makes sense, because you can directly knit. I had friends, they have been building that in 2018 once for scarves, and I think it's a quite big development now also, because all the shirts is actually knitted, right? So it's also, what is your favorite, your most exciting technology project in fashion?
I think I'm gonna remove myself, but I'm really excited about it. And I think it might be more of a PTSD kind of thing, but the first startup I was working on myself was around beekeeping, and it's just,
That's why you know about the LVMH.
Yeah. That was around that time. I sat there and not doing anything for 2 years, like this is the moment to act out. But yeah, it's really nice to see how the project is developing. There are a few smaller brands that are doing this as well, but also
Who have you been working on?
Well, I'm originally from Poland. I've been working on it back then with a few representatives from Google. But yeah, eventually they just skyrocketed 2 years ago around September, which is amazing to see, as I said. And then BOF, Business of Fashion, had a conference where it was also a huge topic. So it's really interesting how this is going to develop, because now we have this period gap from 2026 to 2030 when the European Union Commission they basically said that this is going to be mandatory for a certain industries and certain products, and textiles are included in it. And eventually, I do suppose that the goal is to have as many products as are on the market that have this transparent information for the customer. And now, to get this together with the AI model to actually be aware of how the process is going to look like and how everything is happening. What are the effects of the production, even on the production level. So yeah, but the limitation, maybe not the limitations, but the challenges here are what kind of excites me about this topic, because there's so much still to be done there, and so much to be done in a way that we have to make sure that everything is going to be 100% reflection of the reality. And I think the 100% is really strong word here. It's really strong word, and it is going to be difficult, but once this is achieved, this is going to be really exciting.
I mean, DVP will be, I mean, it's a must. When does it start?
2026, 2030.
So it's soon, it's like next year.
Yeah.
Everybody should be prepared. We also launched a dashboard on our platform where we can track everything. Also collaboration with another stuff. Do you know LabLaco?
Yeah.
So they are working also there. Cool. Thank you. Now coming to you, from an investor perspective, what do you think a retail startup? I have pitch a lot of investors when they say retail, fashion, I don't know. But what do you think, what makes it attractive to investors if you have a retail startup? I have a lot of men sitting there saying, oh no, I'm not into fashion, look at me. What is it actually? What could it make?
I would say just more holistically, fashion, technology, any kind of a deal that I look at or I evaluate, first and foremost I look at, is there a need in the market? Are you solving for a real problem out there? Because oftentimes founders will just kind of get stuck on an idea that's their pet project and just try to make it work at all costs, without really coming back to the roots and realizing, am I actually solving a problem out there? So I think the first thing is make sure that you really understand your market, understand the problem, and then be very, very focused, even if it means like tapping into a specific niche, to fixing something that's actually wrong. So first thing I look at is from an investment standpoint is what problem are you solving? The second one is at the product, is it sufficiently differentiated? And today with technology, with AI, there are so many different ways that you can differentiate your product if you know how to make it work for you. But there are just so many different ways that you can do it, which is why it's such an exciting time, from at least an investment perspective or technology, because you can be really, really disruptive as long as you're smart, as long as you're a hustler, and really understanding that you take the time to learn the technology. So that's probably number two. And then number three, and again, maybe not just retail, but just across the board is the founding team. So if the founders are really passionate, if they understand the product, they understand the customer, they can speak to it, they can relay that excitement, and ultimately that they instill confidence in the investors that they can roll up their sleeves and actually build something really, really exciting. That may be the most important thing, the founder's passion.
Okay, that's interesting. No, but I think the founders team, at least in early stage, is very important. As I have you sitting here, do you see any difference in investment in the US and in Europe? Interesting, maybe most interesting question these days, because fashion tech companies raising 24 million in the US.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question, and I'm a dual citizen. I'm Polish American, and I spend most of my time in the U.S. I have investments on the U.S. side, on the European side, and frankly, I'm disappointed that there's not more U.S. funding flowing into Europe. I think it doesn't reflect on the quality of the products or the businesses in the least bit. I think there tends to be kind of like a follow the herd mentality of the Bay Area and Silicon Valley. folks are just looking at what major VCs are investing in and kind of following that pattern. I think there's a very significant untapped opportunity, which is one of the reasons why I'm in Europe right now, is in the European market, and figuring out a way to make this investment exciting and helping you as investors navigate through the bureaucracy and unfortunately the paperwork of, for example, the German system. It is something that I'm hoping that we'll be able to do, that I'm hoping to do myself, and start to get the info kind of across the Atlantic.
A little bit talking from our experience. We have Techstars that was quite easy because they are international. But then we have another investor from LA, and we needed 4 months with lawyers from both sides to get the contracts done. Because the American lawyer said, we have to write that. The German lawyer said, we cannot write that, we have to have this one. 4 months. 4 months. And then to have transferred the money to our country, I think we had like a 1-year process. I can understand that the US investors don't want to invest in our region. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not that they don't want to. I think there's a sense of hesitation and just unknown about the process. If we could make it easy, if it's this idea. Exactly. And there actually are quite a few that are tapping into this exact problem. But yeah, I mean, just make it easy. You know, work with the regulators. Try to influence. Make your voice loud. And like one of the startups that I'm working with, they're in the Baltics. Their go-to-market strategy is the U.S. because they're developing an edtech platform that's tapping into the very poor educational system in the United States. And they're having trouble getting that first safe round, ideally with US investors that would then signal to the European VCs that there is demand in the US market for their product. So it's like a chicken and the egg situation.
Would you recommend, because we are on this pathway now, to just incorporate the company in the US, or?
That's usually my advice. Start with Delaware. Paperwork is fairly straightforward. You don't have to be a citizen. You don't even have to have a U.S.-based founding member. It's one of the residents, really.
Yeah, we are talking with several investors from the US, and they are only investing in the US, so we're planning that now too. So you think it's an easy process?
It's absolutely an easy process. It also unlocks a lot of smaller ticket investments because of platforms like YOONAVERSE, Speedinvest, etc., where in the US you can, there are plenty of investors out there that frankly have smaller ticket sizes under 10K. But founders are not eager, just don't have the time to deal with those small tickets at their cap table. It's just not an efficient way of to spend your time. With these platforms in the US, it makes it incredibly easy. And unfortunately in Europe, you still have to manage those individual investments, which kind of detracts those smaller tickets, unfortunately.
Do you have, now we're coming into the investment side, do you have any suggestion about pooling or good pooling contracts? Because we have one, how do you recommend that for companies?
Yeah, I mean, so there are various ways that you can approach like the special purpose vehicles, angel investment communities, as long as they can agree and share a similar investment thesis, they can certainly, pull in their investments and bring something like that to the table. The problem is in the US, SPVs, well, there are strategies of working with VCs to bridge some of those rounds with pooled angel investments if you have an LLC, for example. But you're still a subject to this 99 rule, which complicates things. So it's still quite a convoluted process, but it's definitely a route to go or something to explore versus just going through these platforms is an SPV with a group of co-investors.
Yeah, this is interesting. Coming back to our industry, to fashion and retail, did you ever see that investors invested in a fashion brand, for example?
No.
Yeah, it's not just not right. I never saw this either. I had one brand right now. They asked me as advisor, but I cannot give advice.
Yeah, I can't think of one, and I can't think of a pitch deck that I looked at recently.
But on the other hand, big corporates invest in big corporate brands like Bestseller Group and big like Zalando, but maybe or LVMH, they invest in startups, right?
Exactly.
Banco, yeah, that's true.
And that's actually one way, especially as we're looking at investment trends for corporates, rather than spinning up an innovation function internally to transform the product, to kind of ingrain innovation into the day-to-day operations and deal with, like you said, change management, influencing your leaders, etc. Going forward, it's just easier to acquire a startup that already has a proven product, that has some paying customers, and that's absolutely a trend, which is exciting for startups because you have a quicker path to an exit, if that's the trend of corporate innovation and big brands especially.
Can you think of a technology which is like an exciting technology for you in retail or fashion? Something where did you never deep dive into that?
I mean, I would say
shopping and Zalando or something, you saw something.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things. I mean, you know our friend Daniela Felder. She has a super exciting luxury fashion brand. She focuses on leveraging textiles that are plant-based, which like that.
Also, are they in our metaverse still? Showing digital? Yeah, you can go to our metaverse. We cannot talk about this word anymore. We cannot say it anymore. In our virtual world of the Berlin Fashion Week, so you can see one dress of our friend Felder, Danny Felder. She's part of Felder, and Felder is a big fashion brand, luxury brand actually, based in Miami and Berlin. And then they focus on really plant-based fabrics and also like micro. You have been on this exhibition, right?
Yeah, they leverage Brazilian silk or tree bark products. Just
bacteria and so.
Yeah, well, it's and to me, it's there's one thing of leveraging textiles and products in your supply chain that are sustainable, but actually making those products beautiful and exciting. And interesting. That's very, to me, I'm a technologist, I love AI, but that to me is an aspect of innovation that's just, really embraces the creativity, which is so important. So I would say, I tend to invest in AI heavy kind of products, but what really excites me is how do you marry the creativity and inject that into your business while also taking advantage and riding the wave of AI and automation.
Okay, thank you. I think we're coming to our end. We're waiting still for Raoul, right? What time is it? He arrives here at 1. That means in 10 minutes. Let's have a last question. What do you think? What is the future in our fashion industry, retail? What should we have besides the PP? I know that. There are some. The future's open. What do you think? What is the most? What should be done, or what is your vision, or what do you think will be the future?
What will be the future of retail when it comes to AI? I think it's
cases that we see nowadays with the companies that we already know that are slowly but surely implementing some solutions. And what I would say I'm looking for based on what we can see right now is, well, first thing, how these brands will eventually and in the long term approach their customers, how it's, whether or not we'll stay in this physical online reality and how this is going to evolve, whether or not we will have the metaverse evolve, and because it is happening
This is
now.
a good theme actually.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to talk about metaverse anymore, and but
I love to talk about
yeah, me too. But I mean, using it. We have like just saying we have this digital fashion week providing since 3 years. And we have like every fashion week 15,000 people on it from all over the world. Why is it not?
But I think it's the same thing like with NFT. Like with NFT, why not? But at some point everyone was talking about it, and now not necessarily so many people talk about it. Still, everyone knows about it. Some use
It's also
it.
for digital product as for important, right? NFTs is like kind of a way to approach it, right?
Yeah. So it's like all the concept of like Web 3.0. So it's just circling around it. But yeah, so not throwing the buzzwords here. I was keeping the blockchain part. But yeah, so I think this is really interesting how this is going to evolve. Well, I have background in production, so for me is the customer experience, the activations, how we are going to approach that, and how fashion and beauty, because these are my sectors, how they are going to implement it. And looking at what L'Oreal Group is doing right now with their deep skin technology, and how they're implementing it as well. L'Oreal Group, yeah, exactly. A few months ago, I had a huge pleasure to talk with the e-commerce manager of the Baltic States at the L'Oreal Group, and how he described it and how they are working on it. And they are also thinking and talking about the metaverse, but I think it's slowly but surely coming, and I'm really looking forward to see that. Besides, I think what we already mentioned, but also I know I think we talked about it on our meeting this week that there is in the United States there was this fashion startup that does the funding for this 20 million or so.
I bought it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I think because also I'm working with startups and some brilliant individuals, and I hope that with the help of Hey Studios and what we do, we will be able to contribute to their growth. So what I would also like to see, and when it comes to even startups that are retail, since this is our topic of discussion, I would like to see maybe a slight shift of the perception of fashion industry and other industries in eyes of individuals and professionals from what might seem like more serious industries. I do have a lot of, because we kind of are on the bridge and connection between that fashion and startups, so like business as well. And I happen to be in a room with a lot of finance that I would have to explain that fashion industry is a real industry, and it's really amazing to see how it changes what's happening now. So I think when it comes to where I would see the industry being in the future of retail, I would say I would like to see a shift in mind when it comes to the development and investment.
Meanwhile, you have been talking, do you know this agency like Calypso or things like that? They help browseware to be implemented in our I don't know if you know that, but browseware is also 3D technology, and our industry took a while to implement 3D technology. And they used like agencies like Calypso to implement that. But this is like, I mean, then it was like PVH asked Calypso to implement, or big companies to, but it would be like a business idea also for startups having like that, having like agencies like that. Are you doing that with her? You know, they asked it and they came in Calypso 1 week of workshops for all the employees and helping putting browseware in place. So, but paid by this big corporates. would be nice to have an agency which works with all the startups for the corporates to make this happen for the corporates, but on the startup side.
I mean, this is why I love talking about what we do, because we are also at a relatively early stage. We are basically also a startup. It's just, we do what we do out of passion, and we hope it gonna works out. But this is also exciting, but this is why I say we are a 360 agency, because we really want to tailor our services to the people that we work with. And that's why we also have a pool of freelancers that we work with together to bring the results that are needed and the services that are needed, which the founders not necessarily always have the time to focus on, because, well, being a founder is, you have so many things going on that eventually you need a little bit of help. So we should talk after that. I will bring it to my co-founder.
Exactly. So what is your vision for the future for fashion and retail? Maybe you have some.
I think fashion retail can benefit from a lot of the innovative kind of trends that are not even like specific to fashion retail. Automation obviously is huge. AI can help streamline operations, streamline processes, improve lower costs, improve efficiencies across the board. And especially in retail, my goodness, there's so much opportunity. I mean, YOONA is a perfect example. How do you create efficiencies in your design process that has so many positive effects, not just, on the bottom line, but overall general sustainability as well. So I think just, from an investment standpoint, the key is just to be able to tell that story and be genuine about, if you are promoting like sustainable way of doing business. Obviously, you also want to have that reflect on your bottom line, but being genuine about what your business mission is. So yeah, like the trends themselves can be kind of vertical agnostic, I would say. But oftentimes it's how you apply it to your specific sector that really generates a product that's really differentiated for you in your business.
Thank you. Now I want to have your opinion about the metaverse.
I mean, that's an area that, like, metaverse has been around for a while. I'd say that probably warrants a separate conversation, but another panel, because I'm not sure if everything have opinions on it.
Yeah, that's true. Last, I wait for Raoul, who has to come in. What if you have a big wall in Berlin, Alexanderplatz, what would you write, last sentence, on this wall? Like one sentence, to tell everyone.
Just generally speaking, as it relates to growing or building your products, growing your business, etc. I would say just take your product, believe in your mission, and really, really have a passion and drive, and make sure that you're building what you really, really believe in. Because if you don't have that hustle and drive as a founder, it's going to be an upward battle. So my statement is be bold and trust and have passion in what you're building.
Yeah, I think this is really good point, and I think that was something that someone said to me at the very beginning, because before Hey Studios was an agency, it was a student club, and I remember pitching it in front of high schoolers and students in Poland. And after that, I had a short conversation with my founder, just telling my ethos, my mission, what I want to do, why I'm doing it. And the only thing, the one sentence that I've heard is stick to your values. And because we wanted to do something slightly different that we needed back in the days when we started. And then we just took these values, took this ethos, and just applied it to the bigger scale. And then yesterday at the dinner, having so many industry professionals in front of me, people that I really look up to, saying and laughing that we kind of came out of nowhere. No one knows where the.
Who was your favorite person?
My favorite person at the dinner yesterday? I would have to say our amazing co-host, Max. Max is truly amazing person, and
kind and open-hearted.
Kind and open-hearted, but also the community that he brought us as our co-host, and how many different perspectives we had there. Which again, I do love conferences and networking. This is amazing, and we all love that. But having a more conference-less environment and having still all these people, the decision makers, in one room, but then they can talk about basically whatever they want with a glass of water or wine, and with over a nice dinner, the conversation goes really different.
And I will say I love that statement about the vision and the mission, because that's so important to stick to your values as a founder, because your product is going to change. You're going to pivot. You will, chances are you may build or go to market with something completely different than what you imagined or conceptualized, and your prototypes will continue to evolve. And they should, because you should be learning and experimenting along the way. But your core set of values and your mission should always guide you. So make sure that you're clear about that in the early stages and stick to it.
If you stand for everything, you stand for nothing.
But if you're saying that, then I would also say trust your gut.
Yeah.
So always trust your gut, what you feel, because this is always the right thing. Going forward and build whatever you want to build, right? Yeah. I think it's nice where I see Raoul standing right in front of me. He will be our last person to speak today. Amazing advisor. We have several advisors for our startup. He came for one of them, and he gives always, meeting with him is like having like a lexicon of, I don't know. amazing person. So I'm happy that he jumped in today and having a little speech. It's the final speech. So I would say I can give it over to him. And thanks you both. It was amazing to you.
Do I need this or can I just pause it?
You can also talk like
Yeah, I'd rather just.
okay.
Cool. Just right away. So good? That's fine. All right. Hi everyone. I'm Owen. I don't know if you heard much about me, but we won't go into a lot of detail, except for two things you need to know about me. Let's see if this does work. That's enough. So, I have worked in this startup tech ecosphere commercial for 11, 12 years now, and I have worked with over 100 startups. That's because I worked at venture capital, I worked as a consultant, I built startups myself, and I've also helped a lot of clients buy software, as well as companies sell software. And some of the things that I've seen, I'm actually writing into a book now, which is basically aimed at helping, especially startups, but companies in general, help their customers buy the way that they would like to. Because buying is typically quite a difficult thing. And so I find these learnings to be interesting for buyers as well as for sellers. And so I think that's quite boring, like that's my CV and all that, so okay, cool. But then I thought, okay, this is Berlin Fashion Week. Do I have anything to do with fashion? The answer is no. Have I ever done anything fashionable? Well, maybe there's two answers. So answer number one is, I am a huge fragrance nerd, so maybe someone has to do anything with that. I collect fragrances, I try to do them on my own, but I'm really bad at it. But I have a really passion for that, they're like art to me. But then number two, and yes, I went to the barbers on Saturday.
big deal for me because before that, if you think I have a double chin now, it was much worse before, by the way. So when this thing here grows out, it's terrible. And if you have body hair or hair anywhere, you actually know what that is like and what taking care of that's like. So currently there's this line here that kind of works and that kind of shows as if I have a neck. And if that grows, it just becomes a little stubble, and I can still manage it. If I shave it at that point, I see the line, I can do something with it. But if it grows a bit more, suddenly the line disappears, the neck becomes really bad, and then all hope is lost until my next barber trip, because I can never find the line again, and I just make it look even worse at home. Believe it or not, that has a lot to do with tech, and I'll try to bridge that gap now. But if you have hair anywhere, then you maybe know that challenge as well, either because you shave or you do something with that. And that is one of my challenges, is keeping this thing here intact and looking like a human being. And I believe that there's three personas when dealing with body hair, including facial hair. So first one is the perfectionista. And perfectionista, they shave every single day. They exfoliate, moisturize, do everything that has to do with that. They have every tool imaginable. They spend a lot of money and a lot of their budget on that thing. And they know everything about shaving tools and hair and how to keep it up and how to be pretty and all that stuff. And then number two is the procrastinator. This is me, by the way. I would like to not be it, but it is. I let it get really, really bad. And then Saturday morning, I look in the mirror, I'm like, I look like Shrek, but worse. And I have to do something about that. Maybe you know that as well. And then in a panic, either I book an appointment on Tweetwell immediately, which funnily enough, Tweetwell is the first company I built up 10 years ago in Berlin, and now it saves my life a lot. Or I just go to Rossmann and I buy everything and just make sure that I suddenly find a solution right now. And then if I do it myself, I end up with a lot of cuts on my face. I actually have one right now, and my face burns a lot. Maybe you can relate to that as well. And then there's the pragmatist. And that's probably a better place to be. It's where I would like to be. It's where I would shave every couple of days. And I would have a decent setup of tools at home that are good quality, maybe because some people gifted them to me, or maybe because I bought them when I was wise enough to do so. And I just keep up and make sure that this line here kind of stays like that, and that I do continue to look like a human being. That's what I would like to be. And I believe that the same three personas apply to dealing with technology. And that there's also a way that you should be and that you shouldn't be. The perfectionista, they buy every single tool imaginable, and they go to every event, they read every book, they want to know everything about technology. They're the AI enthusiasts that want to go out there and just buy everything at once. Problem with AI is that every single week something new comes out. So all they do is think about that and talk about these kinds of things. And they spend a lot of money on that. The procrastinator, same as with the shaving. The procrastinator, just if they could, they would use their same tech stack for years. 20, 25 years, never change anything. They would like to just make sure everything stays the same, not spend a single dollar on any kind of tech. And they don't really know about anything, but then they find out, oh no, this thing is breaking down. Now I have to inform myself all of a sudden. Now I have to buy every tool imaginable, and I want to implement everything within a month. Best yesterday, right? You've heard that before, right? Things are fucked up, we need to solve them yesterday. These are that kind of thing. And then there's the pragmatist again. And the pragmatist is kind of the same level that you want to be at, which is where they kind of keep up with what's happening, even though it's very difficult, I know. I'm in this world and I have no idea what's happening, as does everyone, by the way. But they still try. They talk to people, they talk to vendors, they regularly update but also measure how well they're doing with their tech stack. And they have kind of a very, as the title says, pragmatic approach about tech. It's just a tool. As you can probably guess, what you want to be is a pragmatist. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that means. And that's because pragmatists, they get the results while keeping their sanity. The perfectionists, they do get results, maybe even 100% of the possible results, but they are absolutely insane.
right? Or they make themselves insane, or insaner than they should be in the process of it. And the procrastinators, they don't get the results, they actually still go insane, but only in the moment before whatever catastrophe is about to happen. I know that's a very weird intro, but now, actually it is very actual to me, right? So maybe it's a reminder and therapy to myself. That will lead me to the biggest learnings that I've seen buyers especially, but also sellers make when dealing with buyers. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to list kind of the 5 mistakes, but also the 5 good things I've seen. Now keep in mind, I'm trying to put all companies together that I've seen buy. So I've sold products to Coca-Cola, Audi, Volkswagen, Metro, SAP, those kinds of companies, but also to really small companies. But I do see that some things work better, especially from the buyer side, and some things work worse. And so the biggest mistake that you can make in this kind of sphere when it comes to buying technology is underestimating tech and startups. And so I would say the archetype for that is, well, this AI thing is a fad. Well, this software as a service thing is a fad, right? Or maybe it's not a fad, but I'll just wait it out. I'll just wait until I know what's good and what's not good. There are some problems with that. I would argue, before I come to a solution, that the main problem with this is that in the age of AI, I don't know if within the next 5 to 10 years we will get to a point where you will have a clear oversight of things and make a very level-headed decision, knowing all the solutions, and you make the perfect thing where you're like, okay, there are these 5 vendors, I waited for 3 years, I know that these are the top ones, I will now make an assessment and see what does this and what does that, I'll then do an intro and a demo with all of them, and then I have my buying process. Maybe it was like that 10 years ago. I think that by the time you try to get to that level, 1 month later from that, there's probably going to be some new tech stack again. There's probably going to be some new things again. I think that there is a lot of evolution happening right now within buyers, and actually the ones that are becoming better at buying and adapting to kind of the speed while keeping their sanity are the ones that are winning. And that's because the payoffs are huge. So the revolutions that can come with these tools are just incredible right now. And I have countless examples of companies, even this year, that, I don't know, so I'm working with maybe 5 or 6 AI startups right now in this moment. Not a single one of them has a great tool, like a perfect tool, compared to where they will be in a year or 2. Not a single one of them has been like established, or like, as you would call them, like been over the majority of like the early adopters, anything like that. But all of them deliver like crazy results. So we're talking to customers like Audi, we're talking to customers like Volkswagen, for example, is another one, that have no idea that these things would be possible. So for example, one company I work with is kind of revolutionizing the way customer service bots work, and with just a month of implementation, the customer, well, they could, if they wanted to, get rid of 80% of their team. They were not going to. They're actually going to find better ways for people to utilize. But they all of a sudden increased productivity by 400% in a single month. And that is a DAX 40 company within a team of about 300 people. These things happen. They happen nowadays. People do that. If you look at the DAX companies out there, a lot of them are reserving budgets of 50, 100, 250 million just for special AI projects, and they're doing these things. The point here is, do not underestimate the speed at which things are happening, but find a way to stay sane while being either a buyer or a seller. How do you do that? So, this is kind of a summary of what I said before, right? Tech really doesn't care what you think. Like, if you're a pragmatist, or if you're really optimistic, or if you believe that this is all a fad, nobody cares. This train is rolling, and either you're going to roll with it, or you're going to stay behind. And that's kind of the reality of things. It's like my hair, it's growing. Maybe I can do something about that, like try to laser or something, but that has other downsides. But it's growing, and either I deal with it, or I'll just look the way I look. Then there's another kind of analogy, and this is, it's not really one thing that one customer has said, but it's kind of a way of thinking that I've seen with a lot of customers. I see a lot of buyers be quite wary of startups, either because they don't trust them yet, they don't know if they're able to deliver, they don't know their intentions, they don't know the tech and all that stuff, right? It can be really difficult, especially if you're a corporate and you're like this big giant and there's risk behind that and all that nonsense, right? I think this is kind of one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is, well, startups are not really this kind of a big deal. If you really look at them, they are kind of like a bunch of crazy people, because you have to be absolutely insane to launch a startup, by the way, or like really like rich and have nothing to do with your time. But like the risk associated is crazy, and you have to be like really into it, and you work 80 hours a week for like 5 years, and if you're lucky, you make a little bit of money, and most of them don't. Well, and somewhere in between, right? But like it's really a crazy life, and it pays off in many ways, and I've done it myself, but it's a crazy life. So you have let's say you're some buyer as a corporate, you have a bunch of absolutely crazy people who work like insane hours of time, and are typically also quite good at what they do. And you have access to them, and they want to give you their all and do something for you. And that's actually a very sane way to look at startups, because a lot of times, especially for early stage, this is what they are, right? They're probably going to do almost everything you want, even change their product for you. They're going to go miles over what a typical vendor would do, and they're going to do all that, hopefully by growing with you, by learning from you. But especially within the first year or two, if you had access to these kinds of people, you would pay insane amounts of money to hire them. And startups typically sell themselves way too cheap. So they typically, because they do things with a lot of money, a lot of time and very little money, and they sell you things typically off at a loss, because startups almost always make a loss. So a third way to look at this would be, it's almost insane not to work with startups, because you can basically take that VC money that they give them and make it yours, right? The startups are funded by VCs, the startups are making a loss, they're working like crazy, they're selling their things at a loss. You're buying that, and you're being funded by a third party, that VC. So maybe those things help you or not, but those are things that I have seen by buyers out there who are like, yeah, actually, this is how I think about this. It would be crazy not to do it. These people are crazy, they work like crazy, and they sell me things for cheap. I would take that department immediately if I could, right? There are downsides to this wall, not everything is so great, right? That's point number 2. Don't overestimate techs and startups, right? And it's kind of the flip side, but both things are true. Be kind of in the middle here. And I find that there's 2 things here that are at work. So number 1 is, if you're not like at least a little bit educated, it can be very easy to expect way too much, way too soon from tech and from startups. Those are not the same thing, but a lot of the time they come in one, right? A lot of time new tech you buy comes from startups. And it helps a lot to be just a little bit informed. Just a little bit, like what is this AI? Right? Just read one book. You're probably going to be like in the top 20% of people out there understanding what that is when you're dealing or buying with it. Or just go to a couple events, or look at a couple YouTube videos, right? Do that a little bit. It goes a long way in being realistic, but also making better choices. And when it comes to how to deal with that realism, we'll go to a later lesson. The second one is even bigger. So, as I said, building a startup is very, very hard. Most startups, they will work their ass off to please you, especially if you're a bigger customer. They typically do way too much. My advice typically is to do less for the corporates, but they almost always do way too much to please their first customers. And yet, most customers make it really difficult to work with them, right? So what I've seen work really well is when customers understand, or buyers, whatever you want to call them, that startups are under a lot of stress. They're really, really trying very, very hard, typically harder than their own teams within their company to make that thing happen. And it's really not very expensive or difficult to be a little nicer to them, to be a little nicer maybe about expectations, about working hours, about realism that you bring into that cooperation. Very tiny things, like maybe not expecting them to deliver the work every single day until 8 a.m. the next day, or maybe being a bit more on point yourself with meetings, for example, or with the project plan and what you deliver. Almost unanimously, I find that, so I'm big on project plan and process and and I've done probably 400 or 500 projects by now in different instances, I find that 80% of the time, the project plan is broken not by the startup, but by the buyer. Either because the buyer like goes on vacation, or they change like the priorities, or yeah, we've moved this to Q3, it's Q1 right now, or yeah, I don't know, this guy just went on parental leave, and we're just gonna figure it out like 3 months from now. Where like that startup is suddenly in an existential crisis. And if you just had one more meeting about that, you probably could have kept them with your side for 3 years working grasses off. So if you see the upsides and you just put in a little bit of work, not a lot, because the money you put in typically is nothing for you, it's a drop in the water for you, but a huge sum for them. And you put in a little bit of work in just being like a good human being to work with, things are, like the things you can get from an early stage startup are insane. For a startup, by the way, I found that it helps a lot to try to communicate that to customers as well, right? And even tell them, hey, like, look, I will go way over everything that you would expect from me if you're just a little bit like, if you treat me like a normal human being. That would be nice, right? Sell the technology internally, and I find that most buyers really, really suck at this. So they kind of expect when you're still in the selling stage, to kind of the seller to take the whole process into their own hands, and they do if they're good at their job. But I also find that a lot of good implementations, when you do get what you were looking for, they are being sold internally as well. And so when you are either you're selling to a corporate or a buyer or whatever, or when you are buying, you shouldn't be alone as a buyer in buying tech, especially when the solution is not just something for you on your own, but it concerns other departments, it goes into finance, into tech, whatever. Almost always try immediately to assemble a team or at least a couple of accomplices out of that and sell that to them as well. It's really difficult to make a project succeed when a buyer is alone is the only person being excited about that thing. And for startups themselves, for sellers, I find that a lot of times they lose that side of that. So a lot of times what I hear is, we're talking to this customer, they're this huge company, and they said, yeah, they're going to pay us this amount of money, it's going to be great. And they're really, really excited about that, right? Okay, have they told anyone else in that company? Have they brought anyone else into that meeting? Have they talked to the buying department? Have they talked to the tech department about the possibility of that, right? And that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make as a startup, but also, or as a seller, but also as a buyer. Right? So it can be easy to become excited, it can be easy to form a good connection with someone, and then forget that this thing is quite a process to start. And then the last one is, every single acquisition should be a business case. And so there's people whose profession it is to buy, there's people whose profession it is to build business cases. Typically the people who buy are not those whose profession it is. And so what I mean with that is, there's buying departments, there's CEOs, or like whatever, CFOs, those people's profession is to build business cases, buy, build ROIs and all that stuff. Most people who startups sell to are not those. They're maybe like head of innovation or like head of design or something like that. And these people don't always build business cases every single day, but it almost always is a business case. It's an investment, there's some return you expect on it, and in collaboration, the seller and the buyer, let's assume they want to buy and sell that thing, they have to build that case. Why? And that's going to come to a point later on, because then you can actually make sure that if it is a success, you know that it was a success. You can measure the thing, and you can look at it and understand why it worked or it didn't work. I will jump over this a little bit because I do think this is quite obvious, but actually it is quite obvious but very deep, and I don't know if we have the time to go into that. Implementation is almost always severely underestimated. And I find that, especially when corporates buy, again, they expect the startup to do all the heavy lifting. Now, if you think about it, as a corporate, you're this big, giant corporation, like huge amounts of money, like yes, they always say they don't have money, but they do tons of money, and huge pools of people. and time on their hands, and resources and all that, and processes, and you've done 100 or thousands of projects. This is what you're good at. What you could bring into the buying process as a buyer from a corporate is you can bring that in there and be like, hey, you do the tech thing, we do the implementation thing. What I find is that typically, and almost all of them could, what I find is that typically corporates be like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with that. I'll be in the weekly calls, and you have like these 20 tech people, just put them on, right? First of all, startup's going to do way too much for one customer. It's not going to be sustainable for them, but that's not your issue. But second of all, they're going to do a worse job than you. So almost always the corporate has better project managers than a random startup with 10 people, right? They have people who've done that for 20, 25 years, have all the certifications, have done hundreds of projects. Why not take those? Why do you expect the startup to do all the heavy lifting for you, right? And the last one. And I think this is actually where things really kind of, if you take a little bit of a longer term view, it can either be a success or it can fail. So I talked about every acquisition is a business case, or whatever kind of case. A case means you're doing something because you're expecting something to happen. And you have to be quite precise about what that is. Increase conversion rate, increase revenue, save time, whatever it is. I find that it's very hard to kind of get into a good project the unclearer that is from the beginning. Which means that if you're selling something, you're really trying to make sure that there's a solid case on the other side. And you're even trying to externalize it and make sure it's written down somewhere. And maybe there's a number for it. But you want to make sure that there's somewhere where they can look at 3, 6, 12 months later and be like, okay, we know what we were trying to achieve, and we can go back and look at that. As obvious as that is, I find that 50% of projects fail because of that. Because it's not absolutely clear what that thing is we're looking at. And absolutely clear doesn't have to be a number. Because it can be hard to say, oh, we're going to buy this tool, we're going to have 20% conversion rate increase. It's not that easy to say that. But it is easy to say, hey, when we bought that tool, what are the assumptions we had? We bought it because we thought these 3 things would be impacted. How do we measure these 3 things? And what kind of expectation would we have? What would be a good outcome? What would be a bad outcome? 2 tips for this. Be optimistic, but be realistic, as a buyer especially. So, almost always, the expectations are kind of too low in how big the results can be, especially for bigger companies when they buy. I'll say that less complicated. Most companies, when they buy technology, expect too little, or are actually surprised by how big the results are, but expect way too much too soon. And so the gap is just the time frame typically, right? Sometimes it works out, like the example I told you. I have a company I work with, they sold to a big corporation, and results came within a month. That's the rare kind of exception. Typically, technology can bring you very big results, but it will happen maybe a bit later than you initially hoped it would. So maybe it's going to take 6 months instead of 2 or 3. Maybe the implementation is going to be a little bit bumpy, or maybe they will need 1 or 2 revisions. If you're realistic about that, you highly increase the chances that you get to that outcome, where you do have that 20% increased conversion rate, 10% new customer, whatever, or 10% less customer acquisition cost, whatever it is you're looking for. Be firm but flexible, and that's the last one. What I mean with that is, so as a buyer, you do have to be very firm on kind of what you were trying to achieve, if you had a good idea of what that was in the first place, but flexible about how to get there. There's a million ways to kind of get to a good outcome, and be flexible about the timeline a little bit. Most deadlines are incredibly kind of like arbitrary. It doesn't matter if that little step is done by this week or next week Monday. What matters is that 6 months from now, you're going to have a much better business. And most companies kind of lose sight of that. They lose themselves in the process, and they're too hard on the startup in the wrong parts. What I find helps is to be like, okay, are we still on track to achieve conversion rate increase? Are we still on track to achieve more customers? Are we still on track to become more efficient here? Yes, cool, let's keep this going. Be firm but flexible. So that was a lot of the points. I know some were quite high level, but all of these are kind of summaries from things I've seen in hundreds of sales. Maybe you have some more questions about some more details. We can go through those if you want. If not, thank you.
Are there any questions?
Like very high-end question, like how do you do that? I mean, you said that before you had already working as a consultant or like in big tech companies, and that's how you started doing. But are you now like an independent person and you go to events and talk to people? Like, how does one become an in-between person between buyers and sellers?
Yeah, I do a lot of different things right now. I'm also in between things, I would say. So I've been working with a quite large venture capital company for 5-6 years, Project A. They're actually quite around the corner, Project A Ventures, and they just invest in startups, and they also help their startups. So I was interim CRO there. They sent me in there for 6 months to take over a role or a team or build up something. So there I saw a lot of things from the inside, but I've also worked kind of with like the industry, as I said, like the Audis and like the Coca-Colas, on like buying as a consultant. So I've done a lot of different things you could say, but really the biggest chunk was as an advisor to over 100 startups. Yeah. And in the last year, I've been working just like mostly with earlier stage, and then also building my own thing a little bit right now, doing a lot of podcasting, a lot of events, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I didn't want to go too much in detail about that. I think it's the shading thing is more
Sorry, I'll make sure I ask a question about your shading ritual.
No, it's fine.
I think your speech was amazing. I recognized a lot of things.
Thank you.
I would like to take you to conferences like where the big corporates are going and listen to all this and learn. I think it was such a big learning. As a startup, I know everything, but they don't know.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. It was amazing. And yeah, we will be around for some minutes more, I guess, and then you can talk to them. In general, we finished now our little event today. Bye to everyone online, and we are also here like half hour more, I guess, and we can talk to each other, and I hope you enjoyed it. And we see us next Fashion Week, and have new talks, new topics, and new technologies for you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ich habe wirklich beim Zeigen